Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 9th of March 2022. Coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello me old booties.
And me, David G7URP. Good evening. On the show tonight, what is your favourite retro technology? Join us live, I can't keep this up, on Zoom to share if you can. What has this got to do with our club and our hobby? And we find out what on earth this is. But first, on a serious note, I'm afraid I have to start with some bad news because I have to report the passing of another one of our colleagues in Norfolk, a radio amateur. George Phipps, G3 IPG, is sadly silent key. David G3 MPN told me about this, and David and Roger and probably some of you have been around Norfolk on the amateur scene for some time will know George. We've sent a card to his ex-YL Pam, and our thoughts of course are with Pam and their whole family. George Phipps, G3 IPG, silent key. We've had some news from John M6JAU, who says recently the media was filled with articles about how turning on 5G transmissions in the C-band could make US planes fall out of the sky. While the matter was ultimately resolved without too much fuss, this conflict may have some long-term consequences, with the FCC looking to potentially address and regulate the root of the problem, as reported by ARS Technica. At the heart of the whole issue is that while transmitters are regulated in terms of their power and which part of the spectrum they broadcast on, but receivers are much less regulated. This means that in the case of the altimeters in airplanes, for example, which use 4.2 gigs to 4.4 gig spectrum, some of their receivers may be sensitive to a part of the 5G C-band between 3.7 and 3.98 gigahertz, despite the standard 200 meg guard band up to 400 megs in the US between the said C-band and the spectrum used by altimeters. What the FCC is currently doing is to solicit ways in which they could regulate the performance and standards for receivers. This would then presumably not just pertain to 5G and altimeters, but also to other receivers outside avionics. And that's where, of course, it's relevant possibly to our hobby. Since the FCC already did something similar back in 2003 with an injury, but closed it back in 2007 without any specific action taken, it remains to be seen whether this time will be different. One solid reason would be the wasted spectrum of 400 megs guard band is a very large chunk in this day and age. And of course, this, as I said, this might affect us. Anyway, that was from Hackaday. Thank you very much to John for sending it as this. Now, Mike M0XM of Kings Lynn Radio Club has asked us to give you details and share this with you. This is a brand new tabletop sale that's happening in a few weeks' time, I suppose about a month's time really, on Thursday the 14th of April at their headquarters at the Scout Hall, Checkers Lane, West Winch in Kings Lynn. The doors open at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and close at 9 o'clock. An entry fee is £1. There's a limited number of indoor trading tables at £5 each, so if you do want one of those, I know it's a little way away, but if you want to be sure of one, then book early to avoid disappointment. I will also put this on our website as well. So good luck with that, Kings Lynn, with a tabletop sale on Thursday the 14th of April. Now, Malcolm G3P, it's hot in here with the tie on, you know. Sorry. It's Malcolm G3PDH has sent us this message to read to you. Thanks to all that took part for NARC in the Club Championship Data Contest last Monday evening. A good entry of 17 logs and looks like it should be a good result. A note that this coming weekend is the RSGB Commonwealth Contest. It runs from 10 a.m. Saturday to 10 a.m. Sunday on all the main bands between 3.5 to 28 megs. It is CW only, but a great opportunity for anyone looking for DX stations in a situation where only UK and Commonwealth countries qualify. This gives UK stations with lesser power and antenna an opportunity to make contact with far-flung locations such as Australia, New Zealand and a multitude of other Commonwealth countries without QRM from the rest of the world. A list of all of the Commonwealth countries can be found on the RSGB HF contest website. No, well, this is actually for you.
For me?
You've received an email, I believe.
I have received an email. Yep, I've got an email here. If anybody was wondering what happened to my lovely co-presenter, Bugs Bunny, we've had this...
You mean this Christmas imposter that I
Yeah,
heard
the Christmas imposter, yeah.
Yeah.
I had this email from Bob. And he says, how has Rabbit progressed since leaving you? Looks like he's getting ready to sign up for Norwich.
Is that the one on the left?
Yeah, his new family are all behind him. Also, they're going head over heels with excitement, plus an update of Batman with the baby bat. So there you go, that was an email from Bob. Thank you, Bob. I'm sorry I couldn't share that any different to that, but GIFs are really hard to put into our media players, so I hope you'll forgive me.
Quickly switch to email. Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Bob. I think, well, I didn't really care really what I was doing. All it matters is I'm back.
Yep.
Have you noticed that? I don't know if it's this tie, but it sort of smells a bit musty in here.
You're going to have to explain your tie, because you just look, you're like there in all your posh gear, and I've just got my hoodie on.
Well, I think that's a nice hoodie, isn't it? You can't see the bottom bit. Oh, made in the 80s. Well, it's a little bit younger than me, I suppose. Should I explain the tie now? It's not really a retro bit, is it? No, we'll do it later. We'll do it later. But it's very wide, as you can see. I'll show you that later. Okay. Tom, G8XQD, says, thanks for the heads up on last week's broadcast. I'm really pleased to have managed to get one of these new G6 PWS state-of-the-art radios. I declined the unobtainium option. These have been found to be radioactive in certain circumstances. I thought about berkelium 97, but decided on making my own alternative, excudenium 121, which is likely to be a highly active radio proliferator. I'll be bobbing along the airwaves, getting all those hard to find contacts stitched up and in my log. Does that actually, just look, I know it's supposed to be brand new state of the art, but doesn't that remind you of something, Sally?
Computer monitor, that's what it is.
Oh, computer monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never seen one before. Okay.
Sorted.
Yeah. If only I could find the person who's responsible for all this sort of thing.
I know.
It's got a lot to answer for, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's have no more of that. This is an amateur radio program, very, very serious tonight. And so let's see the next story, which is from Steve, G4GHO. He sends us this picture he thought we'd all like. Oh, no. Yes, it's another sewing machine.
That's my type of sewing machine, that is.
Yeah, for the garden.
Proper sewing machine.
Yeah, I think we're getting a bit carried away with this sewing machine stuff, but anyway. Thank you very much, Steve. Thanks to all of you for the contributions today. What have you been doing? Always let us know. Send us details to this email address, radio@dcpmicro.com. By the very latest on Wednesday at 3, but ideally earlier, because in weeks like this, we started work on this yesterday morning. So sometimes we need a bit more time. But as soon as you've got something for us, just send it to us. We'd love to share it with everybody. Little People, Tammy. Have you had
Little
time for
People,
that? Because we have been rather busy with this, haven't we?
I have done Little People, yep. Little People's a bit retro this week. It's called Dial Fun.
Oh, yes. Love it.
So
Looks
they're all,
some-
it's like a theme park ride on,
Yeah.
on a dial.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's cool. A lot of people probably wouldn't know what to do with that. I'd like to give one of those to the kids and see what they think of it.
Do you want to cheer me up and say that you do remember dial telephones?
We did have one of those at home, yeah.
Oh, good.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
That's
no,
the
I did it
ones.
wrong. Da-da-da-da-da.
That's the ones.
Da-da-da.
All right, Tammy, thank you very much. As always, those and lots more pictures from miniature-calendar.com. New picture every day. Thanks very much. Okay, so round to the competition time now. And what do you think about last week's object? Did you have any idea? I don't know if we've had any answers or anybody entered online here.
I don't think we have, actually, today. So I'll put it up anyway. Here we go.
Okay. No, we haven't got anybody guessing this. This is a tough one because this, we did tell you, was a homemade tool to do something specific. By way of a clue, though, we told you that it was our own Steve G3EVA who sent it to us, so we thought that might just help you along a bit. Anyway, we had a few entries. First was Kevin M0UJD that came in very quickly. He says, is it a homemade valve removal device? I can see what he means there.
Yep. Stuart M6XTD, is it a tuning fork for tuning guitars?
John GVPE says, well, if Steve G3 EVA is involved, it must be something to do with guitars. So I think it is a device for removing bridge pins, or string pegs if you prefer, on an acoustic guitar. A bit better than wrestling with long-nosed pliers. And Tony G0MQG says, here's the answer for what on earth is this. It's a tool for removing the door handle or window winding handle from a classic car. Now, when we got this, we thought, okay, maybe. But he actually sent a picture of it as if to prove the point. And this is what Tony sent. It's very unusual to show you this, but we're going to show you the picture that Tony sent us. This is what I guess, the tool that he's got, and that's what that's for. He said, this picture shows it fitted to my Mark I Ford Escort. And he says it's for removing or refitting the small clip that holds the handle to the mechanism inside the door. Anyway, were any of them right? Oh, hang on a minute. We've got Alan G800 says it's a set of dog and bitch wedge. What is that? Am I even allowed to say that?
I'm not sure what that is.
Nor do I. Okay. Well, we'll see.
John's 30TWQ says it's a pitchfork.
A pitchfork. I like that. Pitch, you see? Pitch as in guitar,
yep.
Maybe. Okay. But the answer is none of those. It is this. It's a tool to remove push-on knobs on equipment. As well as being a musician, Steve is also an avid repairer of equipment.
I think Tony deserves a good sort of mention there as well, because it's very similar to his tool, and it similarly does the same sort of thing.
Yeah, it's true actually, because it removes a control
it
knob,
removes
it sort of removes a knob.
Something
Yeah,
off.
I get that.
So,
and also I thought, well, they were all good. I mean, they're all valid. I mean, look at Stuart said a tuning fork for tuning guitars. You can imagine that being a tuning fork. Probably if you flicked it, you might get something. Kevin's valve removal device and all that sort of thing. And John's idea for removing pins on a guitar. Anyway, thanks for your ingenuity. This is always the difficulty if we ever, and we don't, this is why we don't often do it, I'm afraid. You sometimes send us pictures of homemade things, and unless there's a chance of getting it, we don't normally do it. But we thought we'd give you some clues, and everybody gave us some really good imagination, but that's the answer. It was. So thanks very much, Steve G3VA, for sending that to us. Okay, now let's going to have a look at this one. Have you got any idea what on earth this is? Now we'll leave it there just for a little while, although as always this will be on the website and on a newsletter. Have a good look at that. If you've got a big device or if you've got a small device where you can zoom in, have a good look at this. I know it just looks like a bunch of wires from first things, but have a good look at it.
There's lots of clues all round the picture.
Exactly.
So it's not just any one area.
No. Can't really say much more than that. We think there's enough information there to get really quite a detailed answer, isn't there? Yeah. If you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But there we go. That's something a bit different. What on earth is this? As always, send your answers to us, radio@dcpmicro.com by 3 o'clock on Wednesdays at the latest, and we will read them out. We'll be putting this picture, as I said, on the newsletter and on our website and also on Facebook as well. So thank you very much for that. Now, this week at NARC, just to tell you what's happening, on Saturday, we've got the Koblenz Sked on 7.123 megahertz at 10 a.m. local time. And there's also a local VHF call-in net on 145.250. That's 10 o'clock. Sunday, we've got the GB Tourist News on GB3MB at 7 o'clock. On Monday, we've got 7:30, the Monday Night Net. This week's hosted by Nigel 2E0NLK. And at 8:30 on Monday, the 80-metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And next Wednesday, here on NARC Live, the 16th of March, that is, it's Radio Sport. It's far more than 5905. And that's Kevin, N4XL. We've had Kevin on the programme for several times before, and he's coming to us live from the States next Wednesday here on NARC Live. And as I mentioned, always send us your stories and mystery objects and things. And the other thing, of course, is our club card, which we are happy to send. And we have a card to cheer people up and for birthdays and celebration things. We also have a sympathy card as well. So if there's anybody you know who would appreciate one of these, just send us their name and address, and we will add your name to ours and send it to them. The radio@dcpmicro.com for anything to do with the show. We do every week almost have somebody just sort of reply to the newsletter. And although it does go somewhere, it doesn't come to me. It goes to actually to the webmaster, and eventually it gets to me. So if you want something to get to us for sure and promptly, then you do need to use that email address really. Thank you. Right. We're on to the main event.
The main event. Are you going to explain your tie now?
Do you want me to do that? What, this musty smell?
This musty smell.
You said didn't smell different to normal earlier. She was very rude. Okay, I will do that if I may start. I know it's a bit rude, but anyway, this is a wide tie from the 80s, or 70s probably, late 70s, and all as gentlemen of a certain age will know that's how lots of ties were then. But there's something rather special about this tie. I called it my pie tie to Tammy. She had no idea what I was talking about. I dug it out from the wardrobe as I can smell. But I want to just show you the details of why I call it my pie tie. I don't know if we can have a look, Tammy. We've got 4 cameras around the place tonight.
See if I can zoom in a little bit.
Okay, so I'll try and hold it still. I'll hold it like that, actually. Yes,
You've made it too small there, haven't you?
Have I? Okay, well, I'll hold it like that. I'll hold it really still.
That's
Maybe,
not...
what about going to the big picture so that people could see it and not see me just...
Hang on. Let's zoom in a bit on it. There you go. Got to find out which camera that is now.
Exactly.
There
we
you go.
go. Can you see why I called it the pie tie? I'll move it around slowly. We've got a lot of... Can you see? It's got Pi, P-Y-E, and that's the company that I worked for. I did my apprenticeship with them, started with them in 1975, and that's it. Far too wide for a microphone even. It's really strange to have it. And to give you an idea, actually, if I can hold it there, if you can hold it there, Tammy, still. I brought a normal tie that I would wear these days. You'll have to come out a bit, I think, Tam, actually zoom out a bit. We've got a remote control camera here. And I'll show you the width of a normal tie. Trying not to catch my mic here, and you will see, we go, the width is twice as wide as a normal tie now, which I thought was a great. Anyway, okay, thought that'd give you a bit of fun.
Was that a fashion thing, or was that actually, why did they make it that wide?
But that wasn't
Was that fashionable?
fashion. I mean, can you imagine me ever being fashionable?
No, not really.
Well, it was fairly fashionable. They were that wide in that sort of time in the 70s and 80s, and when I'd done my apprenticeship and did a few serious things before I set up my own business, that we've given a tie to wear for certain special occasions and business meetings.
It's like that brown sort of...
It was brown and beiges.
Yeah, brown
chocolate
and beige
cream,
type,
they were the thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're talking about retro technology tonight, not just about kipper ties and fashions of the time. But I thought that might amuse some of you.
We should just have a wave to everyone.
Yeah, we should actually. Let's see who's joining us at home. I must say at this point, hello everybody. Lots and lots of people have sent us things and pictures to keep us entertained for the next hour and a bit, I should think. But these are people at home with us. Some of them have got things to show us as well. I think some of you have already sent us pictures. If any of you have got things, can you just give me a wave specifically then, or a thumbs up if you have something you also want to show us from home? So we've got Steve and Tony and Tony. Okay, good. All right. That just gives us an idea. And we'll be coming to you later on as well. We've got lots and lots of things to share with you, as I said, and thanks ever so much. And always this sort of thing, it's always a bit worrying that, you know, how many people are going to respond, frankly, with something like this, because we couldn't fill it all ourselves. But you've been wonderful. So let's kick it off and start with the first one we received. These are pretty much as we received them. And the first one comes from Richard, G0JAG. And says, hi David, I bought this Sony Crt Television in Amsterdam airport about 40 years ago to use it while I worked in the Middle East. I send this to see if you think this is retro enough to mention. Yeah, definitely. That's retro, because that is a CRT, notice, cathode ray tube, which means it's the same principle as for those of you not too technical, you know, with the big tellies, which go back miles. This was, though, a cathode ray tube that was on its end. And so the big tube bit is down the main body that you see, and it was kind of twisted at the end just so it can be vaguely flat. Anyway, he says this is a clip-on. There is a clip-on magnifying attachment, but I can't find that at the moment. All the best and keep up the good work. And then he also sent these 2 extra slides of things. Now, surprisingly, really, when we show you this, you'd think I'd have been received lots of these. I suppose if we'd had said a retro computer evening, we would have done, but we didn't. And this was the only Spectrum we were sent. So this is a Sinclair Spectrum from 1982. And along to go with that, Richard sent us a picture of this, which is an Alphacom 4-inch printer and the bits and pieces. And they're all retro and all work together. So thanks, Richard, for kicking us off with tonight's retro items. Certainly retro technology, definitely. Mm. Now next, we've received lots of different varied pictures from Tom, G8XQD. And to start us off is this. That's firstly, it's a KW2000A. I haven't got any other background on that. I could just see at the bottom though. It says KW Electronics from Dartford. Looks in nice condition, that. Then there's a matching amp. I guess it's a matching amp. Anyway, this is this one. This is a KW1000 linear amplifier. And then to go with both those, the KW107 Supermatch. Made by Decca, that one. Maybe the same company, do you think? Because the numbers are similar, aren't they? I don't know. Maybe some of you know. Let us know on Facebook or BATC if you do. Next, the next picture from Tom is a recent copy of a crystal set. So he's made this and used it with restored headphones. Look at this. At the back of it as well, Tammy, and this is for those of you maybe recently joined the hobby. You may not have. I don't think they teach crystal sets and things at college and school nowadays, probably. But this is the most basic, fundamental crystal radio set that you could ever have.
Geraniums.
Germanium diode. I don't know. I can't see the diode there, but it will be there somewhere. It will be hidden there somewhere. Anyway, that's something that he's made up. And then we've got some headphones which are old, and he's been doing those up. That's got BBC on there, look.
Yeah.
See that? Presumably licensed for the BBC.
Got a patent pending on that, lad.
Certainly. Now next we've got...
Hang on, that's just the...
the last one.
The headphones that are yet to be restored, I think.
Do you know what? I have to tell you as well, this will sound really old, but when I worked for the BBC, those headphones were the ones we used to use in all the contributors, studios and everything else. Those are the headphones that we used. I know they look old and uncomfortable, but there's a reason, and they were tough, and they always lasted, and they were always reliable. So although most of the presenters, we had our own headphones, we brought them in for ourselves. But if contributors and things come in, that's what was used. They looked just like that, and they weren't obviously brilliant quality, but
they look so old-fashioned now, though, don't
I know they do, Tam, but they were really tough. I mean, the one on the left, look, it's got
braided wire.
I should think that's probably cotton-covered wire. So thanks, Tom. Next up from you is this. This is worrying. This is a 100-year-old superfine radio part, not yet identified. You don't think that's from a
sewing machine? Move along quickly.
Yeah. What about this then? Now this is an antique Millex MX8, which is an 8-ton bottle jack, circa 1950, made by Lake and Elliott.
What is that for? Is there a bottle jack? What, do you jack a car up or something?
I think
with
so.
it?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's probably called a bottle jack because of the design. I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you know yourselves. Some worrying comments. I must just go back. They're saying a lot of people like the kipper tie and stuff like that. Look, and then Chris G4CCX says, "This is what I worry about." Chris, he says, "Yes, I've got all of those here." And that's what I worry about when you see things like that. Anyway, this is this is all from Tom. This one here is an Echo valve radio, EK Cole that stood for, which Pi bought eventually, and then Philips bought the whole lot, of course. Next up, a Grundig satellite 2100 transistor radio. They really don't make them like that anymore.
No.
That's probably a world band radio, I should think, if we could read all those bands on there. Next up, this is an ever-ready Sky Countess portable valve radio, restored but untested. And he put in brackets, no batteries. Tom, if that means you haven't got batteries, I don't know if you saw our Christmas special, but we were talking to Mark from the repair shop. And one of the things he does from the repair shop up there in Cromer is he makes batteries to fit in old radios from modern batteries, if you know what I mean, to make them fit and be the right voltage and everything. So if that helps you, look for...
I think you can buy them on his website, can't you?
You can, which is...
something like this.
Classic Repair Shop. Classic radio shop.
I should have done my homework. If not, you can email you.
Email me and I'll put you in touch. And then he says, this is all from Tom. Remember the impossible to set up and program VHF video recorder?
It does look like it has a lot of buttons on that one, doesn't it?
They did, though.
Do you remember when they brought out Video Plus?
Yes.
And then they, was it the World Cup final or something one day? They put the wrong number in the paper.
I didn't know that, no.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, apparently.
My mum, that changed her life because she could never figure out how to... She used to record a whole evening's tape just to get a programme she wanted to start it. But Video Plus helped her and lots of people. It's great stuff, isn't it? Next up is a portable television and radio all in one. I've seen something like that
I think we used to have one of those in our caravan, something like that.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing, isn't it? Probably battery operated as well as mains. Next, a Radio Shack. Remember them, he says. Portable television. Yeah, Tandy and those sort of shops. Next, a Grundig reel-to-reel tape recorder. Hope some of these are meaning something to you at home. John Atwood's put on there VHS of Beta. I think it was VHS actually. Looking at the size of the tape on it. Next up, it is a disposable 35mm film camera with flash. They're diversifying a little bit, I suppose, from technology here. This is a Victorian fireplace. No chimney though, he says. And now this is a marine portable radio.
Black Hawk, that says on there. Can't read anything else.
It almost feels like Generation Game all over again, doesn't it?
It does. You don't win the prizes at the end, though.
The next up is a pair of Casio mini portable televisions. I had one of those ones on the left. They were good. They weren't great quality, but they were good at the time. Now, I'm supposed to read this in a certain accent, I think, or a voice. This is an opportunity.
Like this one?
This is supposed to be nice to meter, nice. Or nice to meter, nice. He's written Bruce 430. I mean, I wouldn't have done that, Tammy, if he hadn't have written
No,
it.
of course not.
There's a nice meter anyway. Are they asleep at home yet? No, they're still there.
It's still there.
Okay, Julian, we've got your message. We'll come to you certainly later to see your slide projector. Okay. Now this is I love this one. This is his caption for that is TikTok, but not the Chinese version. That's an original TikTok, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
I think lots of us can relate to that sort of clock being around at home.
I think my gran had one of these.
Now this, we get to see Tom, I guess that's him. This is, he says, remember the sweater shop from the 1980s? I do, Tom, because they had a shop in Cambridge. It was one of the places they were based.
It says Cambridge on his top.
Yep, and there we are. And now some valves from the 1930s and 1960s.
Does that say EM84 on that, I think?
Yeah, do you know what? I don't know much about valves, but I think that's a fairly common one.
Is it?
EM84, yeah.
There's quite a lot here as well.
Yeah, look at
Quite
these.
a few different ones.
I think there'll be 2 or 3 people on the call tonight who'll know what these all are.
Yep. Some more. Marconi, Mullard.
Yeah.
They're the two sort of biggest makers.
Certainly Mullard were big. And they were again part of sort of Pi and then Philips and everything.
Those ones.
Great range. Now the next item here is a blow lamp. And he says he could use it as a paint stripper, but also it was used to heat a soldering iron and things like that back in the day. I don't know if there's sort of soldering iron that you used to solder components, but I guess that was before you had electric soldering irons, that's what you used. Nearly there. Finally, this, which is a retro 1980s auto-ranging multimeter. Has it got British Telecom printed on it? I reckon he probably worked for BT. That was to stop them finding their way home.
It doesn't look that retro, really, does it?
No, that's what we talked about this morning. But he said this is 1980, so it could be potentially 40 years old. They haven't changed that much, really. That's made by Fluke, I think, top left, if you look, their name is there. So, thank you very much, Tom, for all those wonderful memories, I'm sure, for many of you. So should we go to someone at home now? Who should we go to first? Well, Julian just mentioned something he's got for us. So, Julian, if you're ready... if you could unmute and we'll come to you and maybe you'd like to show us your item. You'll need to unmute though. There we go. Oh, you were nearly there. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
we can now, yes.
Oh, great stuff, yeah. I didn't think I had anything, but then I realised that on the windowsill sat here is my father's old Prince projector, slide projector. And Dad was an avid photographer from when we were all born, from about the 1950s right through. And he started doing the slides in about 1958, I think it was, 1959, something like that. But I've got a lot of, well over 1,000 slides to put onto disc, which is a job I've got to do with the family now. But I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I don't know if it's...
I think you'll... I don't think it's where you're on in focus.
I think it might be the blur background.
Maybe,
on,
yeah. Oh, yes. So actually, if you hold it right close, that became in focus then. Because when it sees a face, you see, it does something a bit different.
Too close.
I think you've got maybe a virtual screen, a rear background or something set up, and that's what. Oh, yeah, we can just see it there. And the Prince name. Am I right in thinking, Julian, that was Dixon's brand?
It was, yeah. The Prince 300. This one.
Yeah. We can see it in and out. It's just the way that Zoom works when you've got a virtual background on, I think. But don't worry, I think we've got the idea. No, it's lovely. I mean,
and you had this fitting that went on. I don't know if you can see that.
Again, you
put the slides in.
So if you hold it in front of your face, it is the way it works. That's where you put your slide and then you slide it along, don't you?
Yep. Just about to see that. I think how it works. There's another one. Oh, there you go. There's another one with which you can put a cartridge box in full of slides, and you just push it and slide it, and it moves it forward. Yeah. But we used to have slideshows where Dad used to put a white sheet up over the window in the living room.
Oh yes.
And sit back and put this projector on a little table, turn it on, but the bulb has gone at the minute. I can't find a bulb for it. Oh. So I've got all these slides that I need to put on the disc. But what I've got to do is put it onto a white sheet, as we used to do, and then take the picture. Because I can't find an app that will work.
There is a bit of equipment though. I'll drop you a line on it. It's not cheap, but it's under £100, and it's got everything built in. You plug that into your computer, and it does everything, and you just put the slide in it. And I didn't think they were that cheap. So drop me an email, would you, Julian, to remind me, and I will find the link and I'll send it to you. It's a local company as well. It was, I thought, really quite a good price for it, and it was under £100, just under £100. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Julian.
Yeah, thank you.
Lovely.
Sorry you couldn't see it very well.
Well, as I said, that's the way Zoom works. It's probably just its way of sort of blocking out other things apart from your face. Anyway, thanks for joining us.
No problems.
Okay, just to keep up with some of the comments we've got here, I'm going to need Tammy to read one of them. Mike GEY has said the EM84 was a magic eye display for showing the level on a tape recorder, etc. So that was one of those green ones, I guess, Mike, where you sort of had a little valve type display, a little display which showed you the levels. It's hard to explain, Tammy. I'm not very good at explaining it. It's hard to explain. So it was more of rather than a valve, it was more of a display unit. When we come to Steve later on, EVA, I bet he'll be able to explain it better than me. Anyway, and Stuart has come back and says, I've got one if he wants to borrow it. So I guess that is the slide scanner,
I think
Stuart.
Bob actually looks like he's...
And Bob's got one there. If he's willing to lend that to you. I don't know if you can see that, Julian. But anyway, we'll... can we go to Bob? Because otherwise everybody at home can't see. I'm just thinking.
Bob, do you want to just unmute yourself?
We've got about 80 people watching at home, but we've also got about 9 people on Zoom. So we'll just... If you're on Zoom...
This is a VHO. Which is what I used to use for all my old slides. That's the carton it comes in, VHO. As you can see here, that's what it consists of. The USB connects into your computer via USB.
Right.
And then you just put all your slides in here.
Yes.
And then push them through.
Well, I'm guessing that might help, Julian. So if it's all right with you, Bob, may I send your email address to Julian afterwards?
Yeah.
And we'll put you in touch, Julian, all right? And maybe you can lend it to Julian to have a...
Yeah. I'll have to post it up to him, but no problem. He's quite welcome.
That'd be great. That's great. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much.
All right, no problems at all. No problems.
There we go. We've already matched a couple of wants, and this reminds me of Swap Shop. That's a thing from Retro.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Yeah.
Do you remember Swap Shop? Do you remember? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
They were great.
You used to watch it all the time.
Yeah, there were things that you took that you didn't want, and you got to swap it. So you took a scale electric set, say, and you want a train set because you've seen the light or something like that. Anyway, not to worry. We will put you in touch. Now we'll get back to some of the slides of pictures. We've been sent a wonderful range of pictures tonight, about 100 in all, which is wonderful. It's kept us busy, say, for the last couple of days, really, putting them together. But it's lovely. So this set of slides has come from, or pictures has come from John, G0MXN, and I'm going to read you what goes with each one. Now, this may not be immediately obvious, this one, about what's technology about this, but as he says, what's retro about this map? Well, this was what we used before Google Maps and what 3 words. This was one of the first OS maps to use centimetres and imperial measurements at the same time. Look at that. So that, you see, that was, I'm sure we all, most of us know what maps are, but I guess that's what they're saying. Okay. Next up, this battery-operated calculator from the 1960s. The calculations used to print on a roll of paper, no way to save them electronically. So if you make a mistake, you have to start again. But I guess you could use them in accounts departments and things like that.
We had one similar to that in where I used to work in the office. If you want to do some big sums, then you could go back. If it didn't tally, you'd actually see what you'd added up and see if it was right.
Yeah, and what John also said is that you had to spot the errors and use the CE key first to cancel the entry before they printed it on the roll, otherwise the whole roll was wrong. So there we are, what wonderful the moves in technology. That was powered by 4 AA batteries. And he just as a reminder here, and he's the only one to send a picture of this, floppy disks.
Yep.
Remember when we only had floppy disk drives on computers? I do, my first Mac. I hadn't got a hard disk, it just had one floppy drive. It took ages to load the operating system and do anything with it. But they were those early days, I guess, with most other computers as well. Well, we could go on cassettes. Looking at your sweatshirt, Tammy, that'd be the right thing.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing that he sent us is this. Now, he says this is probably one of the most retro items I have. It's a Flint knife. Still razor sharp. The lower picture shows an indentation along the top for use as a finger to press the knife down into whatever it's cutting. John found it in a field near Cambridge in 1956. He offered it to a museum, but was told they had plenty of examples from the area around now what is known as Flag Fen, an important archaeological site. Not an area with lots of flint, so it's very marshy and wet there. Brilliant.
Cool.
Now this is from 1967, when we went digital, and people still weighed letters and parcels in pounds and ounces before being forced to use grams and kilos. This is a slightly tongue-in-cheek. I can imagine John saying this now. What's this, you wonder? He said, this is called a book. You know them. We used to use them before Kindles and iPads. This next picture's from a transistor radio from the early FM broadcast date. So one of the first ones that would pick up FM. Known to many people on beaches and to parks as an infernal nuisance, he says. They came with earphones, but nobody knew what they were for. So it was possible to hear many different stations on at once, creating a constant background noise nuisance. Used 4 AA batteries, which were usually left in to corrode terminals, which meant having to find the provided electrical power lead, which was in a rat's nest of many other leads and adapters. Dates from about early 1960s or 1970s and still works.
Oh. It's got that long lanyard, so you said about taking it to the park.
Yeah.
You put it round your shoulder.
That's what you did in those days, Tammy.
Is it?
It is, honestly,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
I just want to make sure, I just having a look here, what people have put. Do you want to read that?
What, from Simon
Loosely called a joke from Simon.
Simon M0SH. I do like Simon's jokes. He gave us quite a few good ones at Christmas.
He did, yeah.
I come from a very, very musical family. Even the sewing machine's a singer.
Ta-da!
Ta-da!
If you know what sewing machine brands are, you'd know what that means. If you're not, you have no idea. Next up from John, he bought this in 1957 when he was in Germany and electricity supply was not reliable. It uses paraffin and it still has the original mantle, which is extremely fragile. He last used it though 3 weeks ago when there was an electrical power failure here. I guess that was with the storms. My neighbour, aged 49 years, had never seen one of these working. She knows about the Tilly pressure lamps, but will now try to source one of these because it's silent, doesn't need regular pumping, and when properly adjusted, only has a slight smell of burning oil. Originally from the USA, and the funnel got very hot in use. And this is an original one from 1957. Now next, John sent us some pages from a really interesting book. And he said, firstly, the inside cover of the book, which was published in 1942, was given to a cousin of Shirley in 1943, as you can see from the inscription. Now this particular here, this battery picture here, this is of interest to you as amateurs. Note the battery pictures of a lead-acid accumulator. I remember these in use during World War II to listen to our valve radio. The power lasted for a week and my grandmother had to change it every week for a fully charged battery delivered to the house in Walthamstow at a rental cost of 6p, or 6d actually, 6 pence, old pence. I remember at age 6 years being in charge of the 6penny coin which I gave to the delivery man with the discharged battery. In those days the radio needed a long wire aerial which stretched down the back garden. My introduction to China insulators where the wire was fixed to a pole. It was also my introduction to connecting terminals to the correct polarity. Absolutely. That's a really old thing. I've never seen one of those for real. Now he also says these pictures are also from this same book. Now he says the following pictures are from the book, photos from the book. Interesting to see the costs of models in pounds, shillings and pence. I don't know if you can see that. I'm struggling, I must admit, to see some of those prices.
6/3.
That's 6 and threepence.
5/3. 7/11.
Okay. John says I haven't converted the prices, but it would be several weeks saving from 6pence a week pocket money earned by weeding a garden or sweeping his bedroom. He was 6 years of age at the time. This would have been very, very expensive for the average child. 7 weeks pocket money in his case. Note they only offer the plans for the self-build of the Halifax. The kit for the Sterling Bomber is £1 and 1 shilling. For decimal currency users, that's £1 and 5 pence. Putting it into perspective, his first pay packet at age 15 was £1 and 10 shillings, pre-decimal. Another thing he notes at the bottom there, and I don't know if you can read that at home, but he said that maybe the next page possibly, but he says that it says, note, no retail orders entertained. So I guess that means it's trade only.
That's on the left one. It says wholesale only, positively no retail orders entertained.
Ah, isn't that interesting? Now next is this what we've called the Drome page. Drome. And the same book, but these are much higher prices, quite a chunk out of pocket money for these, but they do look much higher quality kits than the others.
There's one on there, 9/9.
9
does
and
that
9
mean?
pence. 9 and 9 pence. So that's nearly 10 shillings, that's 50p. Doesn't sound very much, does it now? Why do I have to converting all this money for you like I'm really old and you're not? Next, we'll show you the contents page of this. This book is in excellent condition and might be useful for anyone interested in military aircraft of 1942. There are 80 pages of photos of aircrafts of the time, many with fold-out pages and plans for the aircraft shown. The photos are excellent quality. I've nobody interested in the book, which will probably go in the skip when he goes, so it's 11 by 8 inches, and I don't know if it might be of interest to me, I think he's saying that, or Sonny or somebody else. He's happy to give him away free of charge if you just pay for your postage, or you can collect it from him. So if there's anybody out there interested in that book, then let us know, drop me an email. Next up from John, a fountain pen. This is the story behind these things, is often as interesting as the item. He says, I was evacuated to Wales in World War II. In 1943, aged 7 years, I found this Parker pen on the pavement. I took it home and was told that anything of value that was found in the street must be taken to a police station. That was the code of conduct strictly followed by my foster parents. I took it to Lampeter Police Station, where it was logged into a found property book. I was told that if it had not been claimed in 3 months, I could have it to keep. 3 months later, I received a letter from police to come and collect the pen, which I've used ever since. It's actually a ladies' model, being slightly smaller than the model for men. 14-carat gold nib, and still has the original rubber bladder for ink, although these days I use it as a dip into ink bottle pen in case the bladder is perished. The original nib is as good as the day I first used it. Not bad for a 79 years old pen. Very different to today's buy, use and bin ballpoint pens, he says. The different moral code to the finders keepers attitude today. Very strict then back in Wales. Yeah, I think that's retro.
Yeah, definitely.
Finally from John is this. This brought back memories for me as well. We just got this today from him. This has been in the family for about 65 years. Powered by steam generated in cylinder heated by burning methylated spirits or surgical spirits. The small flywheel drives a model threshing machine which we could not afford at the time. In the pre-health and safety or cover your back with regulations days, this was played with by very young children. No battery power then and no remote control, but it was steered down the road using a rod down the funnel. And I remember that, and you can just see at the top there, that there's a handle disappearing off there. That brought back memories because my dad had something very similar. I don't think it had the cover over the top. Hope this is bringing back good memories for all of you at home. So, thank you very much for all those, John. In a few minutes' time, just a couple of minutes actually, we're going to show you a demonstration of a very old phone, and we're going to do that live here in the studio. But before we get to that, a couple of other things to show you. Now, Mark G0TMT sent us this. Now, he says, this is my contribution to your Retro Equipment Week. This Ferguson Ghetto Blaster radio cassette recorder used to belong to my late father. I'm pretty sure he brought it new in, I believe, the 1970s. In those days, he worked for the then Eastern Electricity Board, who had a shop in the Walk in Norwich. Who remembers that? From where he not only purchased this radio, but coincidentally, thanks to some nepotism, I also had a Saturday job. So I'm pretty sure the employee discount played a part in that particular purchase decision. Ghetto Blaster, that was another name, Tim. Do you know what I mean?
I've heard of a Ghetto Blaster, yeah.
That is the sort of thing you put
I
on
think
your
we
shoulder.
still had Ghetto Blasters when I was
young.
young.
And you took you, and the big lads used to put one
Yeah,
on
put
their
it on
shoulder.
your shoulder and have a skateboard
Yeah.
as well. Probably
did
as
your
well.
hearing in at the same time.
Cool dude.
Okay. You're watching NARC Live. This is our retro technology special. Thanks to everybody who sent us in things for this. Now, Paul G3VPT has sent this. He says, I have 5 different sizes of soldering irons in my shack, and I have 2 vintage ones that I still use from time to time today. This large one here is a Henley Solon 120 watt with a wooden handle, which I've had from the late 1950s.
That is a beast, isn't it?
That is a beast. You could solder all the pins at once on an IC, I think, with that. But probably the trouble is you solder them all together. And he says the other 35 watt iron, this one here, has been in use from the 1960s, and he still has a spare tip for it. Look at that. Brilliant. So a few minutes ago, I did mention it last week, as I want to show you something of my own now. And I've only really got one thing apart from my kipper tie, my pie tie.
Pie?
Can I show you this? So Tammy, we've worked a remote camera in the studio, and we're going to show you this. So can we have a look at this, Tammy,
We can.
please? So this is a BT video phone. It meant a lot to me. When I looked at when it came out, it was 1993. Now, I lost my dad in 1992. Very difficult time for me, as I'm sure for many of you, and if you've lost similar. And I lived in Cambridge, my mum lived in Norfolk, and I wanted to be able to keep in touch. Plus, of course, as you know, I love video and anything to do with it. So I saw when BT were going to bring this out, they were launching it at the Ideal Home exhibition in London. And in those days, in 1993, this sort of thing was really early. You know, we believe that then, for example, the modems you had with computers were certainly dial-up, and they were about 33 kilohertz. So to have something like this was exciting. This is in really good condition, this one, thankfully. Normal keypad, a few buttons here. I'll read them to you, because at the moment it looks just like probably like a normal phone. Secrecy, pause, memory store, memory recall, redial, and loud speaking. And this is the screen, so I'll lift this up now so you can see it. I don't know if you can adjust that. A little bit. Yeah, so we can just see what this phone looks like. So this is obviously a screen. There's a little camera in here. The screen is a liquid crystal display, but it's a backlit by a little cold cathode fluorescent tube, essentially, a miniature fluorescent tube. Got a few usual things that you have on a phone to keep phone numbers on. But here I've got some buttons. I've got contrast, colour, video refresh, freeze frame, call answer, timer, and video. And as I said, I bought a pair of these. They were £399 each, or they were £749 for 2. And of course, because nobody else had them, especially when it was launched, you had to buy a pair anyway. So you saved a bit of money, and I bought a pair of these and gave one to my mum, because I thought it'd be a great way to keep in touch when she was trying to sort of, you know, we were all trying to get over the loss of my dad. So that's the fantastic sort of story. But for me, this meant a lot, especially as you know, I just love video. It's the trouble, of course, now here in 2022, nobody has these things. So you can't easily show them or demonstrate them, which is a shame, really, because in those days they were the thing. But I must say, it didn't really ever catch on. It's a shame I don't know anybody who... Oh, it's ringing.
It's ringing. You better pick it up then.
Hello? Oh, hello. Absolutely. You haven't got a video phone, have you? Well, can I put you on hands-free so everybody at home can hear you now? It's Kevin M0UJD. Could this be a setup call? All right, Kevin. Well, I hope you can hear me at home. I'm going to turn the volume up a bit here if I can work out how to do that. If I remember how to do that. I'm going to take my mic off actually, so I want everybody to be able to hear you. Now I'm going to, as I said at home, there is a button here which says video on off. I'm going to press mine. Is your video already on, Kevin?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm going to press my video on button. Don't press yours just yet. I want people to see, and I'm going to press self view. Oh, there we go. We can see it. It's connected.
Look at that.
Now Tammy's now going to try and zoom in, and I feel like a bit like Raymond Baxter at this point because do you remember that?
I don't know who Raymond Baxter is.
No, you don't know. No, okay. So there was a thing called Tomorrow's World, which was if you were interested in gadget was the thing. Anyway, Kevin, do talk so that we can all see this at home.
This is my voice coming through some sort of very early digital format, and my phone's just I'm trying to do half a dozen things at once, and looking straight at what you're looking at in the studio.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, you can see actually a camera looking at you because we've rigged up a camera, so I'm guessing that's what you can mainly see there. But I mean, I know to people at home now this won't look very good if you've got a smartphone or something or a computer with it all on. This is just we take it for granted with Skype and with Zoom and with FaceTime and things like that. But believe me, in 1993, this was fantastic, and I wanted to share this with you over anything else, everybody, because to me this was a special thing as well. It was a way I could keep in good contact with my mum, I felt, by seeing her, even though it is fairly primitive. You'll notice that if you look at, I'm not talking about Kevin being primitive, well, he is primitive. Anyway, you'll notice with this that if he moves quite a lot, it takes a while to catch up. Because remember, I should explain actually, this is just going down a normal audio line, a normal audio telephone line. We've had to do all sorts of little things here at work to allow this to happen because we've got a digital phone exchange and everything. But this is going down a normal audio line. There is no other modem, no other bit of equipment. This thing here, I don't know if you can see this, I'll just sort of show you here. This is a normal telephone line, a telephone wire here. There we go. There, that's just a normal telephone line. It's plugged essentially into the telephone line, and Kevin has just rung us up. So you imagine how exciting that was in 1993, best part of 30 years ago, to be able to do that, sort of talk and see the person you were speaking to. But it took years and years and years for it to take off, and I don't think this ever did. But Kev, when we tried this last night for the first time, I mean, can you tell everybody how you felt about it?
This thing is sat on the side in my sundown. I keep looking at it and think, I really, really hope this works. I really hope we can make it work. And sure enough, with, no effort at all yesterday, really, once we'd sorted the digital exchange out. If it was two standard phone lines, it would have worked within a few seconds first time. So it really is good. And I've got my phone in my other hand. We keep looking to the side slightly, so I can see what it looks like through Facebook. Yeah. It's amazing, really. The crucial thing is, if I talk, can you hear me all right to actually talk rather than you doing it?
Oh, yes, fine, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, okay. We looked at video phones, which were sort of the next generation to these. The trouble was, let me turn that down, I don't hear myself necessarily off-putting. The trouble was, you had to have horrible subscriptions, which were really expensive and just not worth having. This thing is something that you buy, plug into your standard phone home, just like we have right now. I'm actually sat in my dining room. When I rewired this place, I didn't put very many phone lines in. I couldn't see the point. So I've got one here, and yeah, that just seems to be the right place to do this. I haven't actually got a phone line in the shack. But it's essentially free. All right, I know calls weren't free back then, but essentially, once you bought the thing, the video itself, unlike these second generation ones, it was free.
Yeah. And I mean, actually, we've had a message, Kevin, on BATC from Ricardo. It says, do you still have your ISDN2 BT versatility that worked on... Yeah, well, I mean, he remembers the business premises here, we do have a BT versatility switch, as it's called, or a telephone switchboard, which we've had to bypass to be able to make this call today. But we're not using any of that. And this is the key that I want just everybody to understand. If you had a telephone line just between you two, this is all you need. And way back then, that was fantastic. I was going to go on, and I lost my train of thought because I'm so excited that this works and to be able to demonstrate it all to you. That Kevin, if you look at him when he doesn't move, it's a really quite a clear picture. But as soon as if you do move quite a lot, Kevin, quickly, you'll see it takes a while to catch up. Well, those of you who are interested in video as I am, this is the same principle as used now, where basically it only sends the changes in the picture down the phone line. So that means that when you've got something not changing very much, so picture a newsreader sitting there, only his face and his head and his mouth is moving very much. So the rest of it is pretty much the same, and it doesn't bother doing that. It just sends a thing called a keyframe occasionally. And the same principle way back here 30 years ago nearly was exactly the same. This was developed by Marconi, by the way. This M here stood for Marconi, and this was stood for something like video telephone system, I think, which was hopefully going to be a standard, but it never really caught on. But that's why when Kevin's fairly still, you get a much better picture. When he moves a lot, it's got a lot more work to do and obviously there's a very limited bandwidth to send all that data down a normal phone line as an audio signal. And it sounds just like the sort of signals you heard in those early days of computers with, you know, when you loaded a game from a cassette. That's the sort of data it sounds like. Anyway, Kev, thank you ever so much. I mustn't do any more. Because it's
not only sending the video, is it? It's sending my voice digitally as well.
Absolutely, it packs them all together. It's one of my constant regrets. I did mention this last night to you actually, that way back BATC used to have regular radio relays at Bletchley Park, and one year someone must have worked for Marconi, and they had the prototype for this thing, which was huge, lots of circuit boards and things, and I just wish I'd have got it then actually. Bought it, you know, as a sort of a keepsake, because the amazing amount to fit all this technology in something not much bigger than a normal phone for the time was wonderful. Anyway, I do feel I've been. Can
we just say one more thing?
Of course.
Particularly about last night.
Of course.
When we were testing this, we spent probably nearly 10 minutes using this and talking to each other face to face. We then hung this up and transferred it for a FaceTime call, which kept flipping, dropping out. In the end, we gave up with that and went to a cellular call because it was that bad.
Yep.
This thing just worked.
It did.
And right now, amazingly, I've got no connection on Zoom, and I don't know why. There you go. That says it all, really, doesn't it?
That is amazing. Well, as I said, I've tried to explain. I hope everybody at home understands. This is not internet. This is pre-internet. This is a direct connection down two phone lines, two phones calling each other with a video call. I think it's wonderful. And I thank you very much, Kevin, for joining in the spirit of this. And also, most importantly for me, paying for the call.
Yeah, great.
Okay, mate. Thank you ever so much.
No problem. Catch you later.
Thank you. There we go. Just zoom out maybe one more time, Tammy, just so everybody can see what that looks like. Oops. There we go. And that is it. And that's what you ended up with. Isn't that fantastic? I thought it was anyway. I hope that's brought some... Well, if it hasn't brought memories back for you, because if you didn't have one of these, you can probably understand how excited I was that this thing, which I haven't used for certainly 15 years, just worked last night. Yeah. It was wonderful.
Do you want to just pop your microphone back on?
Yeah, I'll put my microphone back on. You're going to turn my volume down.
Ricardo says that they're very rare, apparently,
really?
Relate 2000s.
Well, I've got a pair of them, so I'm very pleased to have a pair of them. Thank you very much, Tammy. And we can get back to...
Like proper view?
Proper view, yeah. Thanks ever so much for that. That was a bit of self-indulgence, but thought you'd be interested. A genuine bit of retro tech and showing it working. Let's get back to the screen. Actually, anybody at home, anybody like to show us something at the moment? Just raise your hand. Oh, Steve. Okay, let's go to Steve. We'll come back to you. Don't worry, Nev and Tony. We've got you there. So, Steve.
Evening, everybody.
Hello.
Right, I've got a couple of three things. I'll show you first of all the oldest thing that I have today. That is, I'll just bring the camera down a little bit. This is a Valve portable radio.
Oh, that's lovely.
High as well. If I undo this little cover here, we should be able to see the the insides.
Did you say that was a pie, by the way?
It is a pie, yeah. As you can see the valves. There's several valves. I think there's 4 valves in this set.
And what sort of battery? Because there's a mains plug I can see there, but you said it runs off battery as well, didn't you?
It's a battery-powered one. Yes, I've got a mains adapter for it as well, but it's basically it would have had a 90-volt battery for the HT and a 9-volt battery for the heaters. So yeah, it does just medium wave and long wave. It doesn't do FM because FM wasn't about in the. This is 64 years old, actually, or 65 years old. 1958, this was made.
Yeah.
So that's the oldest bit of kit I've got to show you today. So I'll pop that down, and then get the next piece. If I show you this first, maybe you can tell me what you think I'm going to bring out next.
I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, it's a double aerial, so like dipole or something, or.
Is it
Yeah,
TV?
this is what? Sorry.
A TV?
You're absolutely right.
Oh, go me.
So this is an aerial for a colour portable TV, which is the Casio TV 480. Let me get back there.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Still in its original box.
But did you need that huge aerial for it then, Steve?
Well, you could plug it into your own aerial at home, but if you were out and about, you would plug it into that aerial.
Look at that.
That's the one. I can't switch it on because I don't have a battery in it at the moment. But I think it's just double A's in there.
Yeah. And at the time, these sort of things, it was exciting, wasn't it, to have things this small?
Yeah, well, this has hardly had any use, actually. I bought it years and years ago and really never used it. I bought it because we had a Volkswagen Caravette at the time, I think, and I had it to go in there, but we got something a little bit bigger quite quickly after this. I think I bought this in Tenerife, actually, when we were on holiday once. So that I bought the antenna when I got back. It's actually made by Ross. Do you remember Ross, who used to make all sorts of things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
So that's actually a powered antenna as well. It has an amplifier in it as well.
So that really would have brought the signal in for it.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Finally, this is something from probably the 40s, I would imagine. So it's probably older, but these are the modern equivalent.
I just saw those on there and I was excited because I love those.
That's what. Do you know what? Just a little bit of a secret into what they got. Daylight into magic. Tammy and I, when we're doing shows together, we often can't talk to each other, so we have a little pad between us and we scribble notes sometimes. And she just wrote to me a minute ago, wrote a note down saying "flying saucers!" exclamation mark. And I thought, what's she talking about? I have no idea. And I kept looking at her, which you couldn't see. Anyway, that's obviously what she was talking about. Have you had one then?
How did she see my flying saucers?
They were just to the side of your camera.
Oh, right. My son bought me these for Christmas.
Oh.
I haven't had them for years. They're fantastic.
Have they got sherbet in them or
Yeah.
something, haven't they?
They have. Oh, they're very, very sherbety and tangy, yeah.
Melt on your tongue, don't they? They're like that sugar papers. Or rice. Is it rice paper?
I think it's similar to rice paper.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, it just evaporates into a sticky mess.
Yeah.
A tangy sticky mess as well.
Lovely.
Well, Steve, thank you very much for that.
No problem. I'll try using my knob removal tool for lifting valves out, see if that works.
Yeah.
Well, I thought all the answers actually were good because they were relating to what you do. So they were musical or repairing or whatever. So I thought they were pretty good actually. All of them. Very imaginative.
The tool for doing the door handles from that, I have used those before because they have like a clip which you've got a shaft that comes out with a groove in it, and the clip goes into the groove, and you push that back with that tool. And I've used those before, but I think mine's probably a little small for that. Maybe for a very small car they could be used.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Tony's on the call here. We might talk to him later, so I'm sure he'll verify that. He was the one who thought it was for that. And how could you argue with it when you had such a similar tool in there? So.
I've nearly missed the best thing of all. Oh, listen to this and tell me if you remember this, David. Do you know what that is?
Well, it's probably a computer game. Oh, no, that!
Wow, yeah, I had one of those.
That's right. I had something similar.
Casio Tone VL1.
Do you know
there was a famous record that was made using this called Da Da Da.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Da 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 Da.
That's the one, yeah, some German or Dutch
Yeah.
band, I think it was. Yeah. I've had this since from new. So that was a long while ago. I think it's probably in the 80s.
I don't mean this facetiously. You probably think I am, but I mean, do you ever use something like that on stage?
No.
Okay.
No.
I mean, because it would give you a basic melody, or even give you a unique sound, wouldn't it?
It would. It's got. It's got drum kits and everything all in this. Let's see if I can find one for you. Drums. Oh yeah. If I push the music, I can go from the melody to the rhythm. I think. Where is it? You can change the pitch.
Yeah.
You can change the instrument. It's a piano now. No, it's got some. Roger would probably want one of these because the thing is, it's not only you can actually play it as well. So you switch it on and you push the buttons and it makes a noise.
Yeah. Brilliant.
But it's also a calculator as well.
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah,
A calculator?
There's a calculator. See if I can get a bit closer. You can see
A calculator? I don't think mine was a calculator.
it's a calculator, and it has stages as well that you can go back in your calculation, which is handy.
Wow.
I think that might be a bit difficult to sneak that into
Amazing.
exams. But anyway, Steve, thank you ever so much for all of that retro. Really good retro technology. Thank you for sharing it.
That is cool.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers. Brilliant. I could do this all night, looking back.
Lovely, isn't it?
I'm worried because we've got so much to get through and I don't want people to sort of get bored and switch off. So let's move back. We can get my kipper tie out, otherwise it's getting in the way.
Just take it off if you want to.
No. We've got to keep up the BBC announcing properly.
Oh, yeah,
So
okay.
let's go back now to our people who've sent us things from home. And this is the next one's from John G3XLL. And he says, here are two of my trusty vintage over 40-year-old handheld VHF airband receivers. The R537, which is the one at the top, I think, S, is a tunable across the band, and the R528 at the bottom has 6 crystal-controlled channels. They're both in regular use by me, are very sensitive and reliable. The Signal Communications Corporation of Japan were in the forefront of airband radios at the time, along with the UK companies such as Park Air Electronics. I hope these may be of interest. Of course they are.
Lovely, aren't they?
That is isn't it nice though when you have retro technology? And I don't think John would say use it just for the sake of it. He's using it because it's still a good thing to use for listening to aircraft and things. It shows you that some of the original technology is still good. Thank you, John.
Lovely.
Now, the next one, we have pictures to show you and we have some words, but we have the man himself at home,
We do.
Ralph. So I'm wondering, Ralph, if you'd like to unmute, maybe you'd like to, I can either read everything to you, which is fine, or you can give your own commentary to the pictures that you sent to us. So firstly, good evening.
Good evening.
How's Bonnie Scotland this week?
Bonnie Scotland, it's been a lovely week, a bit chilly, but it's been a nice sunny week so far.
Jolly good. Well, it's great for you to join us. And what would you like me to do? I mean, I can read the words if you like that you sent to me, or if you want, we could just put the pictures up and you can give your own commentary. It's up to you.
You put the pictures up, and I'll see if I can remember what they are.
I'll correct you if you're wrong. All right, here we go.
Right, this is an iron. It's cast iron with brass handles and a brass cockerel. It's a French iron that we picked up some time ago. It sits on a stand, which is on the right-hand side there, and it is powered, believe it or not. But when we were in France, we picked this up because in Scotland we don't have electricity yet. And the next slide will show you why this is very useful. The iron, the cockerel, is actually the hinge, and is the clip, and you lift the iron up and you fill it with hot ash, and you can see just how big that chamber is. So when we fill it with ash, or at least when my maid fills it with ash, it will stay warm for quite a long time. And next picture, you will see that at the bottom it's got vents, and at the back there you have a lever that will lift up so that you can increase the air input to heat it up or cool it down. The nuts on the top are handmade, and it's really a very lovely piece of 18th century household gadget. So it's very, very retro. It is a power iron in as much as you either put coal or wood ash or whatever ash you have, and you get the maid to iron your shirts and your retro ties. Trouble is trying to control it, and I'm afraid that if I tried to use it, I would probably burn right through my retro ties, which I still have, David, like you. I still have ties from the 60s upstairs. In fact, I've got my old school FP tie.
When do you think kipper ties came in? Was it 70s?
I think it was the late 60s.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the late 60s, because as a student, as a young student, I had kipper ties and psychedelic shirts. I don't know if you remember the psychedelic shirts.
No. Far too old for me.
Oh, golly, gosh. Yeah. I also remember as a student, I had a Saturday job pumping petrol at a Jet petrol station, 4 and 11 pence a gallon, which is less than 25 pence a gallon. You could get 4 gallons and change out of £1.
Yes, that's
people would come in and ask for 4 gallons, and they would insist on getting the 4 pence back.
That certainly we can't compare that with these days. Maybe we ought to move on to your second item,
okay,
which is what? Well, you want to tell us what this is?
Yes, this is a bronze, an 18th century bronze French fountain head from a village in the south of France. And my exercise, in fact, I was at the reclamation yard yesterday looking for stone. It's the fountainhead from a French village in the south of France. Bronze, and I think there's a shot of the back of it, David.
That's the other shot we've got.
That's the other shot. Didn't send you a shot of the back?
I don't think so, no. We have just two on that one. Yeah,
it's exceedingly heavy. I forget the exact weight. I did put it in my note to you, David. It's a very heavy fountainhead.
Yep, you put 15 pounds or 7 kilos.
7 kilos, that's it, yes. Very heavy, and my wife has christened it in the last fortnight as Len, which is Ukrainian for lion, which I thought was quite a nice touch. So that will not be polished up or anything. We'll leave it as it is, and I aim to get a stone trough and a pillar and return it to a working fountain. Because like the electricity, we don't have running water in Scotland yet, so it'll be very useful for us.
I'm glad you said that. I get into all sorts of trouble.
And those two things are 18th century, so they're very, very retro.
Yeah.
But they both would depend on power or have a useful. They've both had a useful life. And we want to get them back into use because, hey, it's great that these old things are still working hundreds of years after they were made. Thank you, David.
Well, thank you, Ralph. Fantastic. You did it much better for you being there as well than the words, just me reading the words. So thank you very much indeed. That's some wonderful stuff we're seeing tonight, aren't we? Actually, the next person as well, the next who sent us some pictures, he's there. So Bob, G6PWS, I don't know if you would like to talk over your products rather than me. I think that might be good. We've got all the pictures lined up. So good evening to you, Bob.
Yeah, good evening all. Yeah, no problems. I think I find them interesting, so perhaps somebody else will.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll play them out then to you. Firstly, you'll have to explain this.
Well, my wife decided she's going to go back into the past. All our switches around the house have been put back to Bakelite. Although we had all the latest stuff, what were they, like brassy effect things, I've had to take them all out. I've had to make up all these plates to go on the wall, and that's the one in my office in the shack now. That's the one in the living room, dual lighting, and we've got them all around the house now. Goodness, unfortunately, that's what she wanted, and that's what she's got.
Well, it's I suppose really good to know that something that old, is still working. I don't mean your wife now. I'm talking about the switches. Sorry, just in case I was also in trouble now.
No, if you're not listening, you're all right.
No, good. No, these switches are working well.
Yeah, they work perfectly. Yeah, there's some of them you have to just sort of once you switch it on and just like move it to the side and it clunks down. So that's it, but it's working.
Brilliant.
Cost me a lot of money because I got them. I had to get them off eBay and God knows where else.
Heck. So they weren't just things you already had and you just put into use.
No. I had to get them and change them all over, but they're all working fine all around the house now. Every single light switch. So
great dedication to the cause. Yeah. Tell us the story behind the next item.
That's my original, very, very first, when I was trucking all around Europe and the Middle East, and I had a CB radio. That was my very first swar meter and power meter, which I had in the truck, which went with me. So I've still got it. It's not much good for it. It's like 3.5 to 150 megahertz, which was fine. But I don't use it anymore. It's sort of the little crack on the power meter there. That was caused when it sort of fell down off the shelf, which is in the cab. It fell down on the shelf, hit me on the side of the head, and then dropped onto the steering wheel. That's how come that cracked there. But apart from that, still works perfectly. No problems at all.
Brilliant. Right. Great.
Yeah.
Now, what about this? I recognise this though. I've got something a bit like this, I think.
Yeah, well, I bought an FT290R when they first come out. We had a Martin Lynch come to the amateur radio club I was dealing with, and they bought a load of FT90Rs, and we got for a special deal. So I bought one, and this was the amplifier that I bought with it, or afterwards bought with it, and this is the one I had in my truck, and I used it all round, mind you, without saying too much about call signs and stuff like that. The 2 meter rig. I was in Italy and I pulled into a warehouse, and I was in the back of the motor unloading it, and somebody decided to jump into the front of the cab while I was in the back and lift the 290R. Stole it and all my paperwork and everything, but of course I've still got this, so I've never used it since. As you can see, it's quite rusty and quite old.
I think I'm right in saying though, Bob, that they're very much sought after still. So I've got one. I think it is not rated at 30, but some different rate. And I know Kevin's got one, and I'm sure lots of you at home now have got one of these. They were kind of unique in the way they were just neat, and they worked, they did the job. They're very reliable.
That's right. Yeah, it was.
I know you say lots of people with them, and I think they just keep working, really.
Yeah. It does work now. There's no problem with it. I haven't actually fired it up just lately because I don't use a 2 meter rig anymore. But but it does come on, and I've got a little Q, what they call, I think Q radio. Can't remember what it's called now. A little one which I plugged it all into the other day. before I and it fired up lovely. But of course I can't transmit because I haven't got a 2 metre antenna anywhere. So, but at least I put it through a dummy load and it worked fine. Clicked in and away it went. So yeah, no problems.
Good.
If anybody wants to buy it, they can buy it.
Well, you never know. If you want to be put in touch with Bob, we will. Now, this is something I probably should have put this next to the SWR meter earlier, shouldn't I?
Well, that's right. This. I never used it on this because I was using like proper multi-channel rig in the cab. But this one, what we did is there was a few of us got together and we bought these stupid things. Still work, still have it. It's only 4 channel, and as you can see, 2 watts antenna. Where is it now? And it's got such a long antenna that comes. Yeah, it comes right out there.
We'll just come back to a picture of you now.
Yeah.
You might have lost a little copy bit.
Yeah, I've lost the end of the aerial, but the aerial like stretches out like massive. It is. See if I can get it right out. But yeah, it works. As you can see, but you know, by the time you get this aerial out, we don't get it out. Here it comes.
Yes.
That's it. You know, and you're walking around. This is on the ceiling now.
Well, 27 megs. It's got to be quite long, hasn't it? Still.
That's right. Yeah. It works, but as I say, you just had to be down the other end of the street, and you know, you lost them. So, yeah, still there, still got it, no problems.
All right.
I can't see any reason to get rid of it, really.
No, not at all. And then this item here. Now, most of us would recognise something like this, but I loved your comment at the end of this. I don't know if you remember what you said you still use it for.
Yeah, well, what I do is I play CDs and stuff like that, and I can play it directly into my Audacity and record everything off it. I know it's sort of cheating, but that's what I use. Lots of people bring me their tapes and stuff like that, and old CDs. I put it in it and take it like the headphone socket, take that through and put it onto the microphone socket on my computer, and I use the program called Audacity and record them all. So and then lay them down onto either MP3 files or another CD for them.
Yeah, I mean, what's nice is that you're using really old technology with really new, like Audacity, isn't it? And just the two work hand in hand together.
That's right.
Now, finally, from you, I'm a bit worried about this next picture. I can just see it in a preview. I mean, what is? And just please tell me this isn't what I think it is.
Oh, it's a generator. There's a little hamster in there running. It's a generator. It generates power for my other radio one that I let you have the drawing of last week.
But what about that thing on the right? There's a sort of cage type thing. What's that?
Oh, it's a hamster wheel.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and all you got to do is just keep... That's what I said in the comments. I said you just got to have a good supply of hamsters because they get knackered.
This isn't what is this, dare I ask what the make of this is?
It's a singer.
It's a singer. So, Simon, there you go. You got 2 hits on your joke there. What was the joke again, Tammy?
Oh, I forget.
I come from a very musical family. Even the sewing machine's a singer. Bum.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Yes, I think so.
Anyway, there you go.
Never seen so many sewing machines in a radio club show at all. But anyway, thank you very much, Bob. Good to see you.
Bob.
No problems.
Lovely job. Thanks. Lovely to see Bob again. Okay, talking about sewing machines. Well,
not sewing machines.
Well,
what?
Didn't we? Oh no, all right then.
What?
Well, I'm just saying, Lorna 2E0POI, who is linked with sewing machine person.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Has sent us this picture. And Lorna says that my late brother was, much like myself, a collector of things. Attached is a selection of both his and my collection of cameras. Most of them were bought from either antique or charity shops. There's a lot there, isn't there? We've got an Instamatic on the left camera. A Kodak, isn't it, I think? Was that Kodak? I think that was their name, you know. Brownie in the middle. Another Kodak camera on the right. And then the one on the floor. Can you read that? It's a 110, isn't it?
Lisselle?
Or Lisselle, maybe, yeah.
Something like that.
Those are the things.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lorna, for sending those. Actually, this is a time, Tammy, where you're going to show something of yours, I think.
Well, it's not actually mine. I have a picture which I've been told I'm not allowed to show, so that means I'm going to show it anyway, of my 98-year-old granny, who has posed here with a 620 Popular Brownie camera, which I have here.
And she's lent it to you.
She has lent it to me. Yep. Sorry about that, Nanny.
We said you get.
She didn't want me to share that picture.
Oh, we said we get you on the telly.
So I've got it here. Here we go. Here's the offending article.
Now,
and I'm reliably informed this was bought just before war broke out in 1939.
Goodness me.
So it's pretty old. So let me undo these bits. I've got to just pull this bit here out. I can. Undo the clasp. And there we go.
Now, I should think a lot of you watching will know roughly how a camera works. This is traditional, obviously, film camera. So you have a shutter and you have a lens. Shutter lets a bit of light in quickly and then lets it go again. But this is a wonderful thing, you know, for teaching how these would work, isn't it? The viewfinder bit, Tammy, do you want to talk about the viewfinders? We can't really probably show that on the camera, can we? But how that works. But that is one of them,
You can either look through this piece here or this one here.
Depending on whether you want
Depending on whether you want an upright or a downward
portrait
shot.
or landscape,
yeah.
I guess, yeah.
If I go in there, there's when you pull you can see perhaps the flick when you pull it across.
Yeah,
and there's another setting on it. There's a T and an I on the top. If I put it onto the T, it actually opens the shutter.
Do you know if that stands for time? We were trying to work out what they were.
And then close it again.
Sorry, Tams.
Yeah.
I mean, I and T, we thought I might be intermittent, as in quickly, and then the T might be timed, you know.
Maybe.
If you wanted to do a very long exposure for something, you know, because in the film in those days wouldn't have been as sensitive as later on.
There you go.
But do you know what, everybody at home, what fascinated me, and we can't easily show you on film really this, but there was no plastic in this thing anywhere that we could find. The box itself here.
Do you want to go on to camera one?
Well, we could try it. Which one's this one? This one, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll try and do it justice. So I'm just going to show you how this is made. But all of this, the case here, is made of wood. This is all wood from what we can see. Maybe a leather or a leatherette sort of finish on top of the wood. But there's no signs of plastics. We think that might be plastic, but the lens looks glass, and this even bit here, sorry, the little viewfinder thing looks like glass. This looks like and feels, you know, sounds like glass. When you touch glass, you know what it sounds like. Metal.
Ralph has just said that I is instant and T is time.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ralph. Instant and time. Yeah. So we were almost right with the T anyway, the time. But and there's a bit that you put the film here, and then you feed it around, and it's taken up here. This is a take-up roll, isn't it, Tammy?
Yeah.
It's just a beautifully simple design. This is a bit like Antiques Roadshow, you know, and if we were there now and showing you this at home, and when did you say it was, Tammy?
1939.
1939. So, you know, you might think, oh, this must be worth a fortune. We were very sad because when we looked it up, they're actually incredibly common. So they must have made a huge number of them. We found they were about £17 to £20 on eBay.
Yeah, not a lot.
They're really not worth very much, but I can tell you it's a bit of engineering. This is the bit, I don't know if this is, before we go into a wide shot again, I just want to show you this here. I thought was fascinating. This is a lump of wood. Can you see that in here? That is actually wood. All of this is, you can see the grain in the wood if I hold it maybe right. Can't get the right studio light into this, but you know, that's all wood. And I thought that was interesting, that it was metal and wood, most of the construction of it. So thank you, Tammy, and most importantly, thank you, Nanny, for sharing that with us.
Definitely. We'll put it back together now without breaking
Absolutely.
it. I do have one other camera which Nanny had, which is much more modern, although I thought it was quite retro. I'll let you show that.
Can
on
we show it on
camera.
there? Okay.
And it's still got a film in it we've just found.
This is much like Lorna's 110. Some of you will remember. So this is what it looks like, all compact, nice small case. You can't really see much from that. I can open this, can't I, Tammy?
Yep.
It's safely here. So that's what the camera looks like, and then you could sort of hold it like this. That was the idea. So for those youngsters watching, and you've got a viewfinder, simple through the lens sort of viewfinder there. Well, it's not through the lens of the camera. You've got a shutter button there. You've got I think that's a hot shoe for a flash gun, and then you could move the film on just by sliding this button here. Now, this is because I remember it. This is Nanny's, but remember that. But as Tammy said, what was nice is when she said, "Oh, I've got a couple of things you can use on the show." This, if you look, there is a film in it, And what's really exciting this sort of thing is that we don't know what's on the film, do we? So, you know, it's really, we're going to get the film process. Basically, we took a picture of Tammy and Nanny to use up the last 1 or 2 shots.
We did.
We're going to send it off if people still process food.
I'm going to have to Google it because I don't even know where you go to get a film done.
And we'll
now.
get it printed and we'll see
I
what's
don't even
on
know
it.
if it's a normal film.
And hopefully it won't be too old that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's Nanny's bit of Nanny Edna Pratt and from North Walsham. That's her bit of retro technology that she shared with us.
My brother's just sent me a text that says, I think I can remember Nanny with that camera.
Well, there might be a picture of you on it, Kevin.
Might be.
I tell you what, if there's a really good picture of him,
we'll put it on here.
when he's about 3, we'll show it to you. All right, let's get back to the script.
Back to the script. Right,
Now.
we've got Ian next, Ian G4JQT. So let's go on to Ian.
Yeah, so Ian shared us lots of pictures here. Some of these mean something to some of you, I'm sure. Now, he starts off with this one. Now, this is called a Bush DAC 90A. Maybe we're showing these in the wrong order, but now this one, he said, this is special about this. It's an ivory one. And it's without the usual heat crack on the top. So I guess from that, maybe it's valve, and usually it just sort of, you know, gets hot and eventually over time spoils. So this is his own collection. There's one of those dial telephones, like Tammy.
Yep.
So that's that. Now, the next picture, though, is he said, this is also a Bush DAC 90A, but these are 10 a penny, he says. So it's the cream or the ivory one that obviously makes the other one very special. Next from Ian is this. This is a picture. This is a Bush TV 22. Wow, fantastic! It's not just a piece of
furniture, isn't it?
Yeah, and a piece of art almost,
Yeah.
isn't it? No, that's actually beautiful. I think retro now would really suit people's homes now. The next one. Now this is good for 2 reasons, isn't it? Firstly, it's a Bush TV 24, dated around 1953. And it's tuned to one of my favourite programmes as a kid, Thunderbirds. Do you know who that is?
Is that the main man?
Yeah. Do you know who it is?
I forgot what his name is.
Mr. Tracy.
Oh,
he's the dad of all of
Was he Mr. Tracy or did he have a name?
Mr. Tracy. Jeff Tracy.
Oh, Jeff.
But he was the father of all of the younger boys that manned all of the... Anyway, we better not go into
I have
Thunderbirds.
watched Thunderbirds, don't worry.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. That's worth it in itself. Anyway, this one is the same picture, but with a test card, not as good. A remarkable test card. I mean, I'm not doubting that is genuine, Ian, but I thought, if that's right, you know, the symmetry, the way you see, as you know, I'm really interested in television, and the way you'd have to set up the convergence and everything, even on a black and white TV, not a convergence maybe, but all of the geometry to make sure it was linear and everything. And that's why you had test cards, of course, in those days, because you had to set them up. That's a fantastic picture, I reckon. There's 2 pictures actually. Oh, there we are. And this though is called an Echo Black and Chrome A22. It's from 1946, and we've got another picture of a close-up of that one here.
It's funny because the front looks different.
Oh, it does, doesn't it?
Is it when it's switched on and it's not? Maybe.
I don't think they'd be that sophisticated. Go back. Can you go back, Tams?
Yeah.
On the other one. I see what you mean.
Just looks quite...
Is it just that we're looking at either a different radio, same model, but a different speaker grill, maybe a speaker cloth? Do it again, the other one? Yeah, it's quite different, isn't it?
Maybe.
So anyway, that's an A22. Next up, this is a Murphy SAD 94S, and this one's from 1945. There's all the little channels there written inside, isn't it?
Mm.
Home service and things like that. That's what it was known as then.
Yeah.
And finally, for now, this one is the Radio Rentals 58 from 1946.
Just like the carpentry on it is just lovely, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I would think that's not wood. That's, well, I don't know. I mean, someone's going to tell me that. I would have thought that's more of a bakelite, a wood effect, but it could be wood. It looks too perfect almost, doesn't it? To be wood, rosewood or something. This one I'm sure is wood though, this next one. Now this is the Murphy A24. And we've got this picture here, and that almost certainly, you know, is real wood, I would think. But next we've got a little short video that Ian sent us as well.
you go, Alan, your 18 favourite songs, and thanks for your selection. Thanks to Ian Sinclair for production and to you for listening. And if you'd like to do what Alan Miles from Belfast has just done and get your listener top 15 played, go to radiocaroline.co.uk. I'm Mark Wall, back tomorrow at 9 with a quick voyage over the Irish Sea from Belfast to Blackpool, home to Steve Quinn and his top 15. But up next on Caroline, Gary Seep. The personal top 15s on Radio. There you go. There's another one we can...
We have to be a bit careful with music, as you know, on this programme, but I think we got away with that. Hopefully we haven't been kicked off Facebook or anything. That's wonderful. And as you could hear, as Ian told us, he was tuning in to Radio Caroline. But what was wonderful is he got a really old radio. He's tuning into a really old retro radio station. But did you hear what they said? It's radiocaroline.co.uk.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Which brings it bang up to date. So I thought there's slight irony there. Lovely. That is brilliant. We did just have Mark Palmer has come on Facebook and said they are Bakelite. So thank you for that. Yeah, I thought those other ones, that was the previous radios were. Are we still on the air? We got away with it. We're still on the air.
I think so.
We do worry a little bit about
it. Off, no.
They have, if you haven't already worked this out from other problems we've had in the past, is Facebook and other social media do listen out for things like music, and if you're not licensed for it, and clearly we're not, then they can take you off the air. So we have to be very careful how much we play. Anyway, this is another radio here. This is about, he says that Ian has said that he writes articles about the Heathkits in Practical Wireless. This is the HW8 and it's published in Practical Wireless in November 2015. So that's good. And the Heathkit were well known, I'm sure most of you know, but Heathkit were well known back in the day for producing kits of all kinds of electronic things to make up. They were brilliant kits as well. They were quite expensive, but you ended up making something that looked like this, really professional and, you know, as if it had been commercially made. And the next picture is the HW8. Sorry, the HW9. This one is the HW9. And that was published in March 2022, so bang up to date. Mm. Looks more modern, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah.
He also says he's got a Heathkit DX40 modified for 160 metres and 60 metres, an unmodified DX60 and matching HR10B. But he hasn't got any pictures at the moment. Anyway, thank you, Ian, for all those, sharing all those things with us and the memories of Radio Caroline and everything. Wonderful.
We've got a few comments on Facebook.
Okay.
We should probably go back through because
give me a chance to have
we've missed
no,
missed a few of them. Where are we? Tom Miller says, hi John. I think he's talking to John there. The first car I drove had the registration MXN332. That's obviously because John's call sign. A Ford Prefect. Mm. I was 12. Paul G3 VPT. We were buying printed circuit boards for the Pi Valve Portable in the 1950s from a surplus dealer in Botolph Street and built them. I used mine on my bike with the speaker in a sweet tin mounted on the handlebars.
Can you just imagine Paul on his bike with a sweet tin mounted in that? Oh, it's lovely stuff, isn't it?
Paul Gunther. I won my first photographic competition in 1963 using the box Brownie. Excellent. Mm. And they're saying,
Stuart has said 120 roll film, so that's the type of film I guess you use.
Yeah, and Paul said some had 120, others had 620. Paul says that Snappy Shots on St Stephen's still do old school film print, and thank you for that, Paul. I'll check them out. And then Mark Palmer again says the big one with Caroline is wood, but the others are all Bakelite. G4 JQT does a brilliant job.
And talking of which, I just see Ian, who's just sent you those, sent us those pictures. He says the HW8 and 9 dates are the article publication dates. The HW8 sold in the 70s, and the HW9 late 80s to about 1992. So that puts a nice time frame on those things. Miss Heathkit, I remember they really were the best radio kits and things, but they were just very, very expensive. For people to buy. I just remember, I might have said this story before actually here, I hope I haven't, but if I did, I remember my dad wanting to build a car radio. It was a time when cars didn't come with radios as standard. I mean, they just didn't. In the old days, they just didn't come with a radio. They sometimes came with a cutout that you could remove to put a radio in, but they weren't as standard. And he wanted to build it desperately, but it costs more, much more, to build the Heathkit one, and he couldn't afford it, so he actually bought a Pi micro radio that fitted underneath. It's just the way it became, I guess, and that's the trouble when you put kits together. It's quite expensive. Anyway, now next up we've got Tony G0MQG, haven't we?
We have.
Now, but Tony is at home, so I guess that he would like to join us maybe for real. So Tony, if you could unmute, we'll come to you live, and then we can show your pictures, and you can give us a live narration of them. Hello, Tony.
Hi. Good evening. First of all, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
We can hear you
Good.
fine.
Okay, I've made a few notes as well. So, yes, first radio. I was given this one last year. As you can see, it's a Hallicrafters S20R. I've dated that range of receivers, and they appear to have been made between 1939 and 1945, which was clearly World War II time. I wanted to date it a little bit more accurately. Unfortunately, I cannot find a serial number on it, and I have been told that they were sometimes removed because they were used, presumably, by the US military. This particular one has had the mains transformer replaced. I don't think it was because it was burnt out. I think it was because it was 110 volt primary. This one's got an RS components transformer in it, and it's clearly 240 volts primary. Somebody started restoring it. You can see somebody's redone all the lettering on the front, but it wasn't me, and I'm not sure whether that surround for the tuning scale window should be blue or not. I would have thought it should be the same colour as the rest of the radio. So I'm plugging up that one, and if it's the wrong colour, then it will get dismantled and resprayed or whatever, the correct colour. This one works okay. It needs a little bit of TLC, but it basically works. And the window for the tuning scale and the one for the meter need replacing. But I found a company in America that do them, so I ordered some, and I got them a week or two ago. And as I say, I've got to dismantle the radio and replace them, and do that tuning scale cover if it is the wrong colour. But yeah, it's a nice radio, and it does work. But it needs a little bit of TLC, which will get done when I get the time. So that's that one, the Hallicrafters. What have we got next? Oh, Eddystone 730/4. Yeah, I got this one off another club member last year to add to my Eddystone collection. There's 7 of them now. I got that one, a 640, an 840A, a 750, a 770, a 680X, and a 740. And every time I see an Eddystone receiver at a radio rally, I normally can't resist it. I've got a growing collection of them, too many to have in the shack. This one, again, works okay. It needs a little bit of TLC, but it basically works. That's looking at inside of it, the power supply side. And the 2 valves you can just see on the right hand side at the top of the front end valves. And I think one of them is the front end valve, and the other one is the oscillator for the crystal calibrator. And yeah, that's the right hand side, and that's the IF and audio, if I remember rightly. So yeah, that's all. And again, it works okay. And again, it'll get a little bit of TLC when I get the time to do it. I don't know when that will be, of course. So yeah, nice. Yes, Model 8 Avo. I've had this one for more years than I care to remember. The wooden case it is in is an Avo case, at least that's what it says on it. I removed the lid some time ago because it's hinged at the top. It was a bit of a nuisance when I wanted to use a meter. So I removed the lid, but I've still got the lid, of course. And I've got all the proper Avo leads and proofs and everything with it, and the little crocodile clips. That's it, yeah. So it gets used occasionally, mainly on valve equipment, like if I'm playing with one of my Eddystone receivers, or that Hallicraft as you saw a minute ago, and that's the instrument that would get dragged out. Last time I used it, I think I used it to check a 9-volt battery, which is twice on the 10-volt range. So that's that one. Oh, Pioneer PL12D record deck. This one I've had about 5 years, but I originally wanted one of those when I was a student, which was the early 1970s, 1971, 72. And I wanted one of those, but on a student's grant, I couldn't afford one. So it had to wait till a little bit later in life when I was earning a decent wage. And I bought that. Again, it needed a bit of TLC, needed a new drive belt, removed the turntable, cleaned up and greased the turntable bearings and the motor bearings. And it works fine now, and it gets, I tend to play some of my vinyl collection on, which is mainly 1960s and 70s stuff. So I'm a fan of music from that era. So yeah, that's my Pioneer record deck. Still works fine. You can just see the much newer Pioneer amp underneath it. I think it's Pioneer. What else have we got?
That's it, I think, Tony.
Okay, well, I got one or two notes, if you don't mind.
Okay.
No, the EM84 Magic Guide tuning indicator that somebody was talking about earlier on. I've got a few of them in my collection of valves. They're also used, as I say, as a tuning indicator on valve radios. So the eye would close up as you got nearer and nearer to the center point of the tuning. Paul, I think it was P3 VPT, Stu is still on 125 watt soldering iron. Well, I've got one of them, and like Paul, I use it occasionally. I've got a spare bit for mine as well. I found that at a rally just before the lockdown. So I thought, I'll have that in case I need one. I don't know what I'll do with the element cooling circuit though. Steve Shuey's valve portable radio. Well, I've got several of those. I must have 4 or 5 of them. Again, if I say I'm at a rally and they're only a few pound, I couldn't resist them. They all work. The 90 volt battery, one of them, I think it's a B126. I've got an original cardboard case for one, which I keep as one of my radios use it. And I always got to fill it with PP3 batteries, 10 of them to make the 90 volts, and power it from perhaps a D cell for 1.5 volt heaters. So that's that one. I got several of those, and I forget who it was, but somebody threw the Casio keyboard. Sarah had one of those when she was much younger, and I made a classic mistake. Made up a lead that plugged into the audio output on it, and you could plug it into the hi-fi. So Sarah could play the keyboard through the hi-fi. Boy, was that a mistake. Yeah. I don't think she got that anymore. I haven't seen it for a long while.
Okay.
The microwave modules amp, I got one of them as well. I got a 100 watt one in the shack here now. And in the workshop, I've also got a 30 watt one. So as you say, they're quite common. My mother and father had a box brownie, like the one that Tammy has got there from his nan. From her nan, sorry, Tammy. Yeah, my mother and father had one of them, and I've got some pictures of upstairs stored away for safekeeping that were taken on it. They're treasured pictures of my parents and other members of my family who are sadly no longer with us. But 2 other things to show that I never sent you, David.
Okay.
One of my other hobbies, which has been collecting, is pocket watches. Now this one, if we can get it in front of the camera, there we are. That one, which I don't think is very good at getting in front of the camera.
It's okay, just lift it up a tiny bit and then hold it really still if you can. That's it, lovely.
If you watch the second hand at the bottom, you can see it still goes.
Yeah.
And it's showing the correct time. I must confess that was because I set it right about an hour ago. It's a Swiss movement, and the case is 9 karat gold. So it's quite a good one. And it's shown as being from the Birmingham Assay Office. I think it was the early 1900s, and that works quite well. And I've got must be 7 or 8 others upstairs stored away. So that's another one of my hobbies. And the last one, I'm sure we've all seen calculators. Let me try and get this center of the picture. This one is a Casio, but this is not retro. I've only had this for about 10 years or so. But the reason I'm showing it is when I was a student, I got to see one of the first calculators that came out. And I can't remember the make. It only had the basic 4 arithmetic functions: add, subtract, multiply, divide. And get this, it had a 7-segment display, but it wasn't later mentioned diodes or liquid crystal. It had a neon display. So it had a voltage inverter in it to generate the 80 volts so it would strike the neons. You were lucky as the battery lasted in the length of time that you would sit in an exam. You had to make sure you had a new set of batteries in it before you went in the exam, or you would have to resort to...
Yeah.
Try and get it in the picture. There we go. Slide rule.
Yeah.
I must confess, this one is not the one I had when I was a student. I wish I still had that one. I went in a charity shop a few weeks ago and I saw it on the shelf. I like looking around these charity shops. You see some interesting things in there, and also it helps with whatever the charity is if you buy anything. And I saw that in there, and it was £9.95, and I thought, I've got to have that. It reminds me of my students' days.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Well, we've got someone coming on later, actually, who's that's one of the main things he collects, and he's going to be showing us. But Tony, thank you very much for sharing all those things with us, and for your comments about the other things as well. Thanks for joining us.
That's okay.
Cheers. Okay, good. Right, well now, talking about calculators, I happen to know that that might be what we're going to talk to next. So our next guest is also at home. Nev, if you're ready, can you unmute, and we'll come to you.
I'm here.
And we'll show you these pictures, which you've got me very excited, as you know they would.
Yeah, that's right. That's my Sinclair programmable calculator. This one I cheated. I bought it ready built sometime in the 1970s. I've still got the book, as you can see, which is full of, oh gosh, how many pages are there? I can't tell, 70, 80, 90 pages of programs for doing all kinds of mathematical problems. It's a nice little thing. Sadly, the battery compartment is completely short. If you go back to looking at me, you can see that's the back of it. Completely.
Was that because of corrosion, or was it just that it didn't? Because as you know,
I have no idea what happened to it.
As you many of you will know, I really love Sinclair products because to me they were exciting and they were innovative. But he wasn't great at switches and.
That's the book.
Yeah.
Look at the thickness of that.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's great.
I think this is a different one, isn't it, Nev?
Yeah, that's all the writings disappear from the front. That's the Sinclair Cambridge Scientific. I actually built this one myself. I don't know if you're going to show the pictures of the insides of it.
That was inside the cover, I think, to give you.
That's right. It's because it uses something called reverse Polish notation, so you had to learn how to talk to it nicely.
Yeah, I mean, basically that involved, from what I remember, it involved putting in your first number that you were going to do something with, then your second number, and then at the end you used the operand to tell it what you wanted to do with them, didn't it? So if you entered 2,
that's right,
and then you entered 4, and then you had a times at the end. What's that? 4 times 2? 8.
No, you get 8, right?
You hope.
if you wanted to multiply 2 by 4, you'd have to put 2 plus 4 times.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Yeah. It took a while. These are the pictures to show that you made it yourself.
That's right. And do you know what went through my mind when I took it apart and looked at that? Gosh, wasn't my soldering awful back in the 70s? I have improved a little bit since then.
Don't you think as well, then, Nev, looking back at those days, that tools and things that you had for them there weren't quite as good? I don't think. I mean, I've been always an Antec soldering iron man, but they weren't as good, are they, as the ones you get now?
Oh no, I think actually I might have built that one using a Weller instant heat soldering iron.
All right, the soldering gun.
Yeah, the soldering gun.
I mean, that's a big, heavy thing to hold with to do small joints, isn't it?
That's right. The reason I took it apart is I thought I'll try putting batteries in it just to see. It'll never work. Well, the batteries didn't even reach the contact, so I took it all apart, rebuilt it, and ta-da! It lives.
Fantastic, isn't it? And that's from the 70s, you said, didn't you?
That's right. I was talking to my son last night. Apparently that came out in 1975. So it would have been 75, 76 that I built that. I was horrified when I looked up the price of what they were back then. Even more horrified when I looked on eBay to find out what price they're selling for now.
Yeah. Yes, they can be quite... They can go for good money.
They're going for well over 300 quid.
No, really?
Yeah.
I better hide mine from my wife. Wow, that's... I mean, it is. We are living in a time when retro is getting quite popular, and probably because of Sinclair and the sad loss of him recently, maybe that even adds more interest and more value to some of his artefacts, really.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, well, nostalgia's getting better all the time.
Yes, yes. So tell us about this.
We did. I did pick a few pictures off your website.
Oh yes,
Nev. This is the DAC 90, isn't it?
That's the DAC 90. Let's see if I can just. I'm just moving my camera. I'll try and hold it steady. If you just flick back to my live feed, you can see what stage it's in at the minute. I'm doing a complete restoration on it.
Yes, we did actually, not wishing to steal any of your thunder there, but to be fair, you linked us to your whole website and we could have picked anything. But we picked this and you didn't know we picked this. And of course, we also took some of the other pictures like this.
Pictures, yeah.
So you took some nice big stills for us as well, which are on your website.
That's right. Yeah, well, I mean, if you looked at the website, you'll see that I've got a huge set of photo galleries where I keep a record of things.
Yes.
But yes, it's quite clear that this had never been opened since the day it was built. So it's over 70 years old. And that's 70 years of grime.
Yeah. Well, now what's that? Is it on the left there? Is that presumably some kind of tuning coil, is it? Oh, on the right, sorry. On your right, yeah.
On the right. Yes, it's got an inbuilt, what do you call it? It is the antenna. It's got a small and a large diameter one, so it does medium wave and long wave. It does, of course, mean that when you tune it in, you've got to turn the whole radio around to get the best signal. If you remember the days of early transistor radios with the ferrite rod inside, you'll remember what I mean.
Just one last picture there.
And there's the one picture, and this is great, I think, Nev, for people, for say slightly younger people who only think of circuit boards as being the way of connecting components. Because in the very early days, before printed circuit boards were invented,
all built on everything's built on a tag board or hanging off the valve sockets.
Yes. So this is where all the components are just suspended between terminals, and then they're individually wired between one to another. I mean, a nightmare in terms of any kind of economy of scale of production, because people are going to have to wire these by hand, aren't they? But
well, yeah. I mean, I've said on the website, I don't know if it's gone live or not yet. The care and attention that the guy who built it, person who built it, I should say, has gone. You can see on the side where the on-off switch is. Those wires have been bent and manipulated and then soldered. And it's not just touched and soldered. It's a good mechanical connection.
Yes,
and then it's soldered. As I found out to my cost, because I've been taking some things off and unsoldering them. In the top, let's say, I suppose for you it'll be the top left-hand corner, there's a wave change switch, which had been totally destroyed by some idiot turning it all the way around. And I spent the whole of today rebuilding that.
Well, it was coincidence, because there was lots of things on your website, but we picked this because we thought it was, nice story, and it was
Yeah.
your partner was talking, Lorna was talking to a guy called Coxie in the pub, and how you got hold of it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you switch back to my live feed, I can show you something very, very retro, something that I'm quite sure many people will remember. It's a valve, and that's what happens when you drop it.
Oh dear.
Yeah. If you look to the website, you'll see one of the pictures on it is disaster. I dropped the valve and it popped.
Oh dear.
So that should bring back unhappy memories to lots of people.
But there are quite few valves, aren't there? From what I understand, when I did the interview at Christmas with Mark of the repair shop, he said about there was a guy near him in North Norfolk who's got thousands of valves. So it sounded like almost there was, you can still readily get valves now.
Yeah, I did. There's the box. A new one arrived today. I put it in and it worked.
Wow.
Other retro things you can see is here's my trusty old portable Avo, which I've had since the 70s. The Mark 7 Avo here, which I picked up at a steam rally.
Yes.
And I don't think there's anything else of interest that I've got that's retro.
Well, thank you ever so much, Nev. We've still got quite a lot to get through, but it's been great that you shared those things with us, and the calculator especially for me. I just tell you about one comment that someone's put down, that the trig functions Mark has put the trig functions for those Sinclair programmables was horribly inaccurate, only good to about 3 significant figures. The Casios and IBMs were far better. Well, I suppose, looking at it though, you only had 5 digits, didn't you? And then 2 exponents, the power.
I think it was a 5-digit, digit mantis and 2-digit exponent.
Yeah, so you're not going to get terribly great resolution from that, are you? But
no.
Anyway, Nev, thank you ever so much.
If you think about it, if you take a global position, 3 digits, 3 decimal digits in radians will get you down to within about 2 meters.
Yes.
So it's good enough for building a house.
Absolutely. Nev, thank you ever so much. Always a joy. Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, thank you, David.
Take care. That's lovely. Sinclair. I didn't bring in the Sinclair this time. Okay, so now we've got someone else we've got pictures and a really good story behind it as well. You may have seen them before, and you've seen Richard before, but we're now going to go to Richard M6 UES, and he's going to tell us an update, really, of a story of something that he has told us about before. So, hello, Richard. Can you unmute, please, so we can come to you? If you have joined us recently, you're watching NARC Live, and we've got a retro technology special. That's what you're watching here. Richard, can you hear us? I think you haven't unmuted yet, possibly, Richard. There we go. Speak now.
Is that better?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Marvellous. Before I start, I just want to sort of reflect on a couple of things that other people have said. I think you mentioned right at the beginning, and Tony talked about it as well. I put a comment in the chat box. I had a very early reel-to-reel tape recorder when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I think my mother bought it for me because I was just into that kind of thing. And that had one of these valves that you and Tony talked about that actually I think is a glorified CRT, which shows this. The bars go together. It's a bit like a modern day VU meter, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is that how they work? Is it effectively a CRT?
I don't know about the CRT, but they're certainly. I think they're more probably akin to a sort of neon, really. And the stronger the signal, the closer these bars got, as Tony explained. But I mean, I'm not an expert on thermionics, but I think that's probably how they worked anyway. But they were common things. But the magic eye detectors, I think, is what Tony called them, and that's what I remember them being called as well.
Yes, I think that is how they work, on similar principle to a cathode ray tube.
All right, lovely. Thanks, Tony, for that clarification. So back to you, Richard.
I just did wonder, and it was lovely to look back at the retro TV as well, because that just reminds me of, again, from my childhood, the early days before breakfast television, when BBC and ITV used to do about a half, three-quarters of an hour startup before anything started. And I'm told it was to allow the equipment time to warm up and get up to temperature in the transmission rooms. I don't know if that's true or not.
Oh, no, it was in the early cameras. They took a long time. It was called the line-up, and you had to line them up and get everything together, and it was a real job. And yes, for hours, some of the equipment, they'd have to switch on the cameras at sort of 6 o'clock in the morning so that they'd be ready to start being used and be stable by 8 or 9 o'clock. Incredible, really, how it ever worked. But you've sent us a picture, haven't you, of this, of the, we're going to show you now the picture of this Laserdisc player. And you said you have talked about this before, but you've got a special reason for mentioning it again because of your son and his new fiancée.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of you will remember Peter, who came to Bright Sparks. He's now, we mentioned it before, he's now 25 years old with his own home and his fiancée, and it just is incredible how quickly he's grown up and whatever. But anyway, Charlotte, his fiancée, and he came around the other night and was just commenting about my hi-fi rack, which you've got the picture of there, and saw the word Laserdisc in the middle of this big unit and said, well, you know, what's one of those? And super keen to get it all out and show her. You know, what a Laserdisc was. I've got an example of one here that I can actually show to camera. That's what a Laserdisc actually looks like. And I said to her, you know, people used to call them big CDs, I think, back in the end of the 80s and the early 90s. But it was a forerunner, I suppose, to anything decent quality-wise on the TV, because she found it incredible to believe that back in the early 80s and 70s and earlier, I suppose, you had to watch what was on TV. You couldn't record anything. And then when recording came around in sort of the mid-80s, it was all on grotty VHS and Betamax, although it was cutting edge at the time. It was very, very grotty quality. This was actually an attempt to have something that resembled broadcast quality on your TV. And in fact, some real film buffs even now say that these are better than the DVDs and Blu-ray and streaming, because there's no digital encoding at all. It is purely, you know, what the director intended. And a lot of classic things came out first on this format. That one there is Michael Jackson's Thriller. Obviously, one of the most classic videos of the 80s was first released on Laserdisc. And you can see the price on it. I paid 10 quid for that one. And that was then, you know, so it wasn't particularly cheap. But the format was, you know, top end and top end prices as well. And, you know, a bit of an enthusiast thing, which I followed really from sort of, I suppose, 80, 88, 89 into the 90s. And I was quite impressed to find she knew one of the two of the titles I've got there, even though they're well old. She knew Ghost, she knew Dirty Dancing. And of course, Peter reflected back to the things like Top Gun. So it was quite nice to have some old movies there. But yeah.
Just in case, Richard, somebody hasn't seen. I beg your pardon. Someone who hasn't seen these, though, you sort of talked about them looking a bit like a CD, but of course these are much larger. It was hard to necessarily tell exactly how big that was when you were holding it. But I mean, you're talking about roughly a foot, you know, 300 millimeters across, something like that.
Well, 12 inches in diameter, same as an LP record.
Yes, so quite large. That's so anybody watching who's never seen one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, today's kids. I mean, records are making a comeback to today's kids, aren't they? They don't call them records; they call them vinyl. But yeah, a 12-inch LP. This is the size of these discs, you know. And so I suppose the mechanics in the player I've got has got to be pretty beefy to drive something of that size. But it's not like a CD, is it? It's quite heavy.
And that's right. And as you say, there's a sort of more or less an analog type signal. So it's got to be. I mean, digital's relatively easy, isn't it? And it's there or it's not. So it's relatively easy to decode. But if it's analog, it's got to be right. It's got to be accurate. But yeah, I mean, the format died a death really at the turn of the millennium. But I still got the player, and when we first went into lockdown, I went onto eBay, and I was quite surprised to see how much you could still get. They're all obviously old movies and old music videos and the like, but you know, it's great. It all still works. It didn't work quite a while. Took it apart, cleaned the laser up, put some WD-40 on the gears, and it works a dream. You know, so
So quite impressed with it.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my update really on Laserdiscs. For
Thank
those
you.
who've never heard of them, when we next pop of it, I'll try and bring them along.
That would be lovely, yeah. Well, I'm sure at some point in the future. I mean, it will be a little while, I guess, because we're doing a retro night tonight. But we'll do a retro night for real with people. I remember the last one we did at the club was many years ago now. But we had people bringing. Remember the chopper bikes that someone brought? I think it was Dodge that brought a chopper bikes along and everything.
Yeah.
So anyway, they'll be brilliant. Richard, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and please give our best as well to Peter and Charlotte as well. Can't believe he's 25.
Thank you very much.
I cannot believe he's 25. It just makes you feel so old. But anyway, thank you very much.
It does.
So that was Richard, and now we've got some pictures and a nice story from John, M6JAU, also one of our Bright Sparks leaders. I'm sure you remember seeing John at the club. So these are the first picture that he sent. Now this goes back to computers. I know John does love the old computers, as I do as well. This is one of those ones that probably wasn't mainstream, I think. This is called the Mattel Aquarius. And John says, I think this was made in Japan, like most electronics at that time, but of course Mattel are a US toy company and the software was written by Microsoft. Like many computers of the time, it was strongly influenced by the Sinclair Spectrum, right down to the horrid rubber keys. Instead of predicting what you were trying to type in BASIC, it uses the control key plus the main keys to produce the basic command words. I never had the manual, but managed to draw up a table of the commands. I can't remember any details of its performance, but I seem to recollect terrible colour. The one thing it did do better than the Spectrum was a ROM cartridge port, so games etc. could be simply plugged in on a reliable connection with no wait while they loaded, but I've never seen a cartridge. The Aquarius sadly never caught on in the UK. This is the only one I've ever seen. Actually, it never caught on anywhere because apparently it was only produced for 4 months in 1983. There's another picture, haven't we got, Tammy? It's a similar
I'm sorry,
picture.
I was distracted by a comment that just came in, so I didn't share the rest of the
No,
pictures.
you didn't. So,
Sorry.
There we go. Look at that. There's
Picture
the back of it. I mean, obviously a bit faded, which these sort of old beigey sort of computers tend to do if they get, especially if they see sunlight. But yeah, I think I've got one of those, somewhere in a collection of it. Look at that. Actually, we can just see the price on it. £5. Yeah. But really quite an uncommon one. What worries me is, as a collector of old computers, I'm sure many of you at home as well have collected them, is the software, of course. Because as well as collecting the computers, you've just got to have some software, or all you're ever going to get is the switching on and a copyright symbol or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, for his second of 2 entries to us, sent us this. Now, this is one called the Auric Atmos. This is certainly one I remember as well. And he says that Auric were a spin-off from moderately successful Cambridgeshire computer company Tangerine. By the way, we were in Ely, I remember. And they made bare-board and racked computer systems. The Auric was supposed to leap into the profitable home computer market between the cheap and nasty Spectrum and the expensive BBC B Micro. You will note that all of these originated in Cambridgeshire. All in St Ives, actually. Okay, well, I'll beg to your better knowledge, John, although I seem to remember that Auric was actually... Tangerine was based in Ely. But anyway, they're all Cambridgeshire, as you say. The Auric 1 had little calculator-style buttons, but in a solid grey case, with a decent basic, good loud sound, proper interface connectors, including the red, green, blue video, as well as the TV aerial feed. It sold reasonably well, though it wasn't helped by a few bugs in the controlling ROM and by the fact that the battery burnt to the ground one night with all of the parts stock. Sales impressed the company enough to bring out the improved and colourful Auric Atmos, with ROM bugs fixed and the full-size keys, but by now the home computer boom was over and a few sold. Acorn had the same problem with the Electron. Auric in the UK closed down in 1985, and although a French company took over production of another improved model, the Stratus, that only lasted a couple of years more. And what John finalises by saying, these two machines epitomise not only the divide between rubber and plastic keyboards, but also the processor battle. The Aquarius used the Z80, like the Spectrum, and the Atmos used the 6502, like Acorn products. Brought back memories for me.
Really good condition as well, aren't they?
They are, and they're really fantastic history on them. Well, we're nearly at the end of our evening, actually, and it's quite late, so it's probably a good thing. I hope we've still got lots of you watching. We're on the last couple of people, actually, who are with us to tell us about their entries. So, firstly, I'm going to go to Tony M0TDK. Tony, would you like to talk about the pictures and things that you sent us? If you have, could you unmute, please, and we'll come to you. Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Seems a long time ago now.
Yeah, sorry, I know this is going to be a record evening. I think 2.25 hours so far. So I think we might make it till 10 o'clock.
Yes, and I sent you some pictures of, well, this is a Polaroid SX70. I'm getting mixed up with computers. This dates from probably the mid-1970s. And if you show the next picture, what you do is you pull it up like that and it opens. And I actually have it here. I don't have any film for it, although you can still get the film for them. If I can... This is the machine itself.
You'll have to hold it in front of your face, Tony, because otherwise the zoom will take it off, or in front of your body. That's it. Yeah.
And what you can do... I've got to find the catch.
It's because you've unfortunately got a virtual background on, and that's what it does. It tries to lose everything else that isn't your face. So if you hold it a bit, that's okay. If you hold it a bit further down, underneath your chin. I have
a better idea.
If you hold it under your chin, it will honestly work. Unless you want to switch off your virtual background.
It's just a blur, I think, isn't it? Blur background.
Yeah, or blurred background. If you switch that off, it'll work fine. Oh.
If I can get this to focus. No, going the wrong way.
Okay.
No, I can't get this damn thing to focus.
No, it's okay. But if you just hold it in front of you, underneath your chin, sort of thing, Zoom will take that as your shirt and jacket. Trust me, and it will work.
Just come back to the picture.
We'll come back to the picture while you sort that out. So Tony, if you now hold it underneath your chin, and we'll come back to you.
Why don't I turn off the
Yeah, well, you can turn off the virtual background and it will work fine. There we go. Right. There we are. Now it should be fine.
That's probably easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this thing, if I find the catch.
So it's a Polaroid, just in case there are people
watching. It's a Polaroid.
Watching.
What happens is you put a cartridge in here.
Okay.
Where am I going there? You put a cartridge in there. The cartridge contains the battery as well. This is a through the lens, it's a reflex camera. So you shut that up. And Robert's your relative. You know, you've got it. This is the focus. And it's electric. In other words, that when you put the film in, because it contains a battery as well, I seem to remember there's eight pictures per shot. You can still get film for it. I did think of getting some the other day, but then the urge left me.
Can we just for the sake of anybody who's watching, and we will have all sorts of ages and experiences watching this show, and just in case you don't know what Polaroid they was famous for, of course, this is an instant camera, isn't it? So
well, yes and no. They call them instant cameras, but basically, when you press the button, out the slot at the front, the picture came, but it wasn't developed. And the rollers inside had squashed the chemical into it. So what you then got was a slowly developing picture, which developed over a period of probably about a minute or so. So you could sit there and watch it develop, which was quite interesting. But yes, they call them instant pictures. This was the last model of Polaroid they made. The earlier ones were much more chunky, made of plastic. This is made of metal. It's very durable, and well, I still have it all these years later. So I mean, this is it's got to be getting on for 50 years old, hasn't it?
I remember my father buying one. It wasn't as posh one as yours. It was better than the basic one, but it wasn't that brown one. I think it was grey or something. I remember, but it was very expensive. And I remember when he got the picture out of the camera, and as you say, it wasn't developed at that time. He used to put it in a metal clip and put it under his armpit to warm it up. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. The early Polaroids you had to do that with. The SX70, which I just showed you, it did it all for you. So when the picture was warmer, it worked quicker. So you used to put it in your top pocket, because we all had top pockets on our shirts in those days. So you put it in your top pocket, and it would develop, and you'd pull it out, and you'd have a picture.
Yeah. I mean, Tammy just looked at me. I wish she could have got that on film, on video, because she looked at me and think, "How old is this man?" When you have to put a picture under your armpit to hate it, as if I was making it up. But that was how it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you had to have the right clip, of course. That was the other. You know, you couldn't just put it under your armpit. And
No, you had to have this metal clip. Yeah. Anyway, bizarre. So we're going to show you the next picture now. This was your Tandy TRS-80.
This is a TRS-80 Model 3. Tandy, for those, again, who don't remember, were big into electronics. I mean, they've long since faded away, but I bought this in, I think, 1971. You showed a 3¼ inch disc earlier on and said it was a floppy disk, and the answer to that is no, this is a floppy disk.
Well, we'll show you this.
You see that?
Yes.
This is a 5¼ inch floppy disk, which goes into that machine, and I still have all the software for it. I've got C programs, BASIC, and what that picture is showing you is actually that my TRS-80 has something which is rather unusual. I did want to do a video of it, but unfortunately, the technology defeated me. But if you look at that screen display, this is an early graphics system. This is a Z80 based computer. So if you press show me the next slide, you can see that picture changing. This is a graphics. They call it the graphics test, but it's really a demo. And I think there's a third picture as well, isn't there?
Well, there's the picture of this, which says that it has got the graphics upgrade.
Yeah. But basically that it was an early attempt at graphics, but it was a real chore to get any sort of picture up. You had to type it in almost pixel at a time. You know, you had to type the coordinates of everything you wanted in there. It did come with a little book telling you how to make a picture of the space shuttle.
Wow.
I never succeeded in getting that to work because it was about, 3 weeks typing.
Yeah. It just shows you how far it's all come. It's incredible, isn't it?
I mean, that's a Z80 based machine. It's still working, although the screen's a bit dim, which is why I couldn't video anything. It needs a bit of fettling, which it'll probably get in the near future. But yes, I mean, that's still working. It's still, it's very clunky.
Now, I mentioned earlier on that we had a man coming on later whose passion with these. So this is the first of your slide rules, isn't it? So first,
that's a slide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just ask you again, just for those who've never seen one of these and has no idea what this is, just to briefly say what you do with them before you give us the history of it.
If I can get the camera to focus, I can show you. I'm just going to switch to the other camera. And hopefully I can focus that.
Okay.
Hang on, I've just got to fiddle around with this a little bit. The delay doesn't help, does it?
No. Have a look at your Zoom picture and that you're sending us, not what we're sending you. That will help.
Oh, I tell you what, no. Is that in focus now, David?
Not quite.
Not quite. Oh, that's it.
That's better.
Leave it there. Yeah, that's perfect.
Right. This slide rule is the same model that went to the moon.
Oh.
And slide rules were invented back in the 16th century. And what have I just done there? It's not quite in focus, is it?
It's not bad. It's okay. I think we can read it, honestly.
And basically what these things do is they add or subtract logarithms. So they do multiplication and division. Going the wrong way. That's much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So these things do multiplication and division. This particular one, as I say, is the same model that Buzz Aldrin took to the moon in his hip pocket, or probably his top pocket. And when you reflect that the computer on the Apollo was very primitive, what they basically did then was they took readings from their instruments, transmitted the data back to mission control, who ran it through a mainframe, and then sent the information back up to the spacecraft. So, for example, for navigation, they had a very complicated sextant, which is probably the most complicated optical instrument ever built, which they would take shots of the stars with, send the numbers back to Houston, who would calculate it and send it back up. So in a way, this thing is the most complicated, is the most sophisticated computer that was ever on Apollo. And basically, if you look down the left-hand side, I'm trying to line those up. You see you've got scales marked A, B, various other ones, sine and tan, and C and D. Now, it's very simple. As you know, if you add logarithms, they multiply, or at least you might know. I'm just going to set that up. So I've put the 1 above the 2, if you can see down here.
Yep.
And strangely enough, if I move it along a bit without moving the... I've just moved it. Oh dear. The boys are full. If I put it, I nudged it when I did that, which wasn't a very clever thing to do. I'm also wearing the wrong glasses for doing this, but that's essentially what it's done. Is it's 2 2s are 4, so under the 2 you can see the 4.
Yeah, I see. All right. Yeah, okay.
So I mean this slide rule is just one. I mean I have a number. This one, for example. This one is made in 1960. So this one is what, 62 years old? Mm-hmm. But there are slide rules around out there which are, 100, 200 years old and older. So basically, before calculators came along, which really was the middle of the 1970s, if you were an engineer or did anything, you would use slide rules. And I think I sent you pictures of 2 other slide rules, didn't I?
You did, and this is one of them.
Got one here.
Okay, this is probably an easier way of... I'm just going to switch my camera back again to the other one. Yes. This slide rule here is probably the most, in my opinion anyway, it's probably one of the latest or last slide rules. They were competing against calculators. This particular slide rule made by Castell was the last model they made, and the ultimate slide rule in many ways. If you want to buy one of these today, you're going to have to pay 150, 160 or more for one of these, because they're A, rare, and B, well, they're wonderful toys if you like these sort of things. I'm curious as to what Tony bought in the in his charity shop the other day, because I'd be interested in knowing what model it is. Because if he got lucky, he might have bought something that's worth £400 or even £500.
Wow.
Well, I can put you in touch if you like.
Yeah, he's had to pop out, Tony, so he's not there at the moment.
Well, yes, I mean, it's not essential, but something like this is probably one of the Rolls-Royce slide rules. The other picture I sent you, which was of another slide rule. Now this is, you've done something very clever there. That's nice. So what you've got here, this is a slide rule made by the Japanese. It's on bamboo, which strangely is a very good material to make slide rules out of. But this is something called a Hemi 266, which is just a number. But what it does, as you will notice, is it does all sorts of interesting radio-related electronics calculations. And actually, slide rules are very good for this sort of thing. I mean, I'm not going to try and demonstrate with it, but if you were trying to work out, for a particular, say, inductance and capacitance, say with this, if you look in the bottom left, you've got the resonant frequency calculation. So you can use this to directly calculate the resonant frequency. If you know the inductance and capacitance, you just line them all up and you can read something off. But if when you wound your inductance, you've got a slightly different value, you could, it's very easy to slide this along.
Yes.
And if you try and do it with a calculator, you find you're typing the numbers in over and over again, unless you have a programmed calculator, in which case you're really working with a computer. But these things are dead useful.
And I love the idea that it's made of bamboo as well. I mean, that's really...
It's the ideal material, strangely. I mean...
very stable, I guess, Tony?
It is. I mean, it's very stable, but what is special about these is they have a lovely action, if that's the right word for it. They slide very well, where some of the plastics, you have to treat them. Faber-Castell made a special oil, which they, well, it was more of a grease, which is no longer available. So you wind up with just a faint trace of Vaseline on them, just to make them slide properly. But yes, they're wonderful things, and I have quite a few. The real problem is, as you just noticed, is trying to demonstrate these things on video is extremely difficult. Apart from the fact my eyesight isn't up to it, you need to have them stable, you need to have them in focus and all the rest of it. So although I'd love to show you these in more detail, it's something I haven't mastered the technology of yet.
No, well, it's been lovely to share them with us. I think for a lot of people, they won't mean a lot until someone like yourself shows it. And I do remember a slide rule being optionally, you could use it at college. I didn't know there were any with built-in calculant, specifically for doing specific calculations, things like you said, because that makes it much more efficient. You don't need the book of log tables or anything else. So it's fascinating to learn about that.
I mean, the Faber-Castell one I showed you, most 12-inch slide rules will work to 3 significant figures. But that Faber-Castell one has a unique trick, and it'll actually work to 4 significant figures, which is better than many of the calculators it was competing against at the time.
Yes.
Sadly, by the mid-1970s, these things were no longer viable, and people stopped making them. The Hemi 266 I've got, this electronics calculator, I'm actually the first owner of it to use it. It came to me in its original wrapping and its original packaging. And so, it's new old stock, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a 1962 design.
Yeah, fantastic. Tony, thank you ever so much for sharing those with us. I think we've got to nearly go there, really, because we're getting so late that I think I've got people saying now they're leaving because they've got to walk the dog and literally things like that. One other quick comment, though, before Tony goes. It's just that Mark Palmer's come back and said that Kodak did an instant picture camera too, but Polaroid won a court case over copyright infringement, and Kodak had to swap everyone's for a Polaroid. Wow.
So, wow, I never knew that.
I seem to remember something happening about that Kodak were probably going to be taken, but I didn't realise that they had to swap everybody's Kodak camera for a Polaroid, so that must really have cost them a fortune. But anyway, maybe if Polaroid then obviously were the original designers and developers, they probably deserve that. But once again, Tony, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thanks. So we're nearly there. We really are. Last person to speak is actually still at home. Malcolm, G3PDH, sent us a couple of pictures this afternoon. So Malcolm, if you could unmute and we'll come to you. Good evening.
Yes, okay. Good evening to everybody. Yes, the pictures, is the picture up now?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yes. You've seen it before, but it's the 1922 crystal set, medium wave crystal set. It's got a cat's whisker device up near by the hinge there, which you have to adjust as the diode rectifier. And the tuning control, I think, is 2 coils that rotate within each other like a goniometer. So that's the crystal set. It was made by Radio Instruments Limited. I think they were one of the major makers at the time of crystal sets. And interestingly, the instructions in the lid, it's authorised by the GPO and the BBC, and apparently you were restricted to a 100-foot long antenna in those days. That was the maximum you were allowed.
Why was that, Malcolm? Do you know?
Well, that was 1922, the crystal set.
Yeah, but why was
why?
Why were you? Why did you have to limit the
I don't know
length?
what the reason is. Sorry, I don't know what the reason is behind that. Why 100 foot was the maximum you could have, but that's what's written in the lid anyway.
Yeah, because the receiver's it's got nothing to do with receiver performance, has it? As such,
No.
or, you know, it wouldn't, not like a transmitter.
Well, no, but they do need a fairly long antenna to make them work. I mean, there's no batteries, obviously. It's purely a crystal set with the headphones powered by the rectified signal. So you do need a fairly strong signal into it to make it work. Just quickly, just moving on, I just had a couple of things. I noticed people had shown some books, and I realised I got two books in the bookcase, which I just quickly pulled out, if you can see that one. The Amateur Radio Handbook, and that's 1944, the RSGB Handbook. And interestingly, it was printed 11 times during the war, from 1939 through to 1944. There were 11 printings of it.
Wow, that's a lot of reprints, isn't it? A lot of imprints.
Yeah, a reprinting of it. So that's quite surprising. And the price was 3 and 6pence on it. The other book which I've got is also the Admiralty Handbook for Wireless Telegraphy, and that was 5 shillings, and that's 1925, although this is a 1928 print of the 1925 handbook. It's amazing that when you just look through it, the technical detail is tremendous. It goes through from spark transmitters through to triodes and even through to modulation, which is interesting. I'll just finish by just reading one little section about modulation, and it says that it's interesting to note that by the use of a suitable filter, it's possible to eliminate the lower sideband and the pure carrier frequency component and transmit the speech on an upper sideband only. As this method has no immediate service application, the explanation is omitted.
Oh, yes.
So 1928,
Yes.
they kind of knew about single sideband then.
Yeah.
Very interesting indeed, looking through some of the detail. And the mathematics in there is quite dramatic in terms of dynamos and AC and spark transmitters. And similarly with the RSGB handbook, the print is very small and it's a very comprehensive book. So just
and now the RSGB handbook's a massive tome, isn't it? Which is, you know, it's I mean, it's literally a couple of inches thick and, you know, full A4 size. So
yeah, I mean, this is only just a fairly small book, 3 and 6pence. Overseas price was 4 and 6pence.
Amazing.
So anyway, yeah, there you are. I'm conscious of the time, so.
No, but thank you, Malcolm, for joining. Yeah, I'm sorry that you were, as you know, you popped these to us at the end today, and we.
Yes, that's no problem. I realise.
No, but we
late entry anyway.
That's fine. We love to we love to have your entry as well as everybody else as well. So we want to give you time. Thank you very much for joining us. We know it's very late, and we know lots of people are probably going home now and whatever, and they'll be able to watch the recording of this, so they will be able to. Watch it all, gone home. They've actually gone. That's what we're going to do.
Home,
well, you know what I mean. They've got to walk the dog and things like that. We've seen little messages saying people got to leave. We're just going to leave you very, very, very quickly with just one little quick video that we did the weekend. Tammy, this is your department, really.
Yeah, this is just we went up in the loft basically, and
not ours.
No, not ours. Sorry, my mum and dad's loft. And this is a computer we had when we were kids. So I thought I'd have a go, and remember that if you had one of those. So we got the kids to, these are Kevin's children, we got them to have a go on it.
This is Phoebe.
Yeah, it was a fruit machine game, so they were all liking it. My dad was having a go as well. and we were all trying to beat everyone. Mac had the highest score for ages, and I had to try and beat him.
I was going to say, you are a sneaky one, because I took a picture of it and he was at the top of the leaderboard.
He was at the top, he was. So I've got a little video here
All right,
of Mac.
this won't take long, guys.
Here we go.
What's fantastic is he is 9 now, just 9.
Is that right?
Mac,
Yeah.
just remind me how old you are
9.
and what year you were born.
2013.
There you go.
I nearly spoiled it, yes.
You did.
Isn't it? 1984, and there's a 9-year-old and enjoying it.
He was really enjoying it, yeah.
It was really, the Coleman household on Sunday was Mr. and Mrs. Competitives.
It was.
They were really, I was leaving them to it.
You didn't have a go, did you?
No. They don't really do much for me, computer games, but I love the computers, the hardware. I'd have had the screwdriver at it if I'd been left with it for very long. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for tonight. Thank you very much for bearing with us, and especially though, thanks to everybody who sent us those things. Yes, it's a mammoth show. I don't think we've ever done a show that lasted 2 hours 40 minutes. But thank you very much for staying with us, and if you're watching this on the recording, we hope you enjoy it as well. But especially to all those people, let's just have a quick look at everybody at home as well. Thank you to all of you.
Hang on, let me just.
We're just going to say goodbye to you. We know it's late. I'm going to go home for breakfast, I think, soon, not dinner. So anyway, good night, everybody. Good night, Ralph. Wave, bye. It always takes a bit longer for the signal to get to Scotland.
It does,
That's what
it does.
is. Thank you very much indeed to all of you, especially if you sent us something tonight to share. Just a reminder, this week at NARC, we've got the Complaints Sched this Saturday. It's 10 o'clock on 7.123 megahertz. On Sunday, the GB2RS News on GB3NB. Monday night, 7:30 on GB3NB, we've got the Monday Night Net at 8:30, the 80 metre CW net. And next Wednesday, here, live on NARC Live, we've got Radio Sport, Far More Than 5905, with Kevin N4XL. Once again, thanks very much for joining us. This must be the longest programme we've done.
I think it is the longest
2
programme
hours,
we've
42
ever done.
minutes. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope there's been something for you in it. And thanks once again to all of you who contributed. I'm going to go and take this kipper tie off and the musty smell.
I'm going to keep my hoodie on. I quite like this, actually.
Okay, I'm going to take this tie off.
Wear this now.
Have a great week. We'll see you again next week for NARC Live. Take care. Thanks a lot. From Tammy.
Bye-bye.
And from me, David, G7URP. Bye-bye.